Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see if you enjoy these kinds of stories. Don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Heretic Saint. The air atop the Red Line was thin, sterile, and smelled faintly of ozone and old blood. It was a rarefied atmosphere that the world nobles claimed was the only air fit for gods, but to Saint Figureland Naruto, it just tasted like stagnation. That he stood on the balcony of his private estate within the holy land of Mary Geos, leaning against the white marble railing. Below him, the meticulously manicured garden stretched out in geometric perfection, the red earth hidden beneath layers of imported stone and artificial beauty. He wore the standard white suit of a celestial dragon, the fabric woven from silk so rare it was illegal in 3 of the 4 blues, but he had discarded the traditional resin bubble helmet. Saint Naruto, a trembling voice called out from behind him. Please. I did everything as you asked. Naruto didn't turn around immediately. He brought a hand up, inspecting the gold ring on his finger, a signet of the Figureland family, depicting the moon being devoured by a dragon. He adjusted his collar, his movements languid, predatory. His blonde hair, brighter than the sunlight filtering through the artificial clouds, danced in the wind. You did everything as I asked. Naruto repeated, his voice low, carrying a textured rasp that seemed to vibrate in the listener's chest. I asked for the tribute from the South Blue to be audited for discrepancies. I did not ask for you to burn a village because the harvest was late. He finally turned. His eyes were the color of a frozen ocean, blue and piercing, holding a weight that felt older than his 20 years. Kneeling on the expensive carpet was a CP0 agent, a masked man who had killed kings and silenced revolutionaries, now shaking like a leaf in a gale. They were disrespectful, my lord. They hesitated to pay the heavenly tribute. I was merely, you were inefficient, Naruto interrupted, stepping forward. The marble beneath his boots didn't crack, but the air in the room suddenly grew heavy, a physical weight pressing down on the assassin's shoulders. The birds in the garden stopped singing. The wind died. Dead men pay no taxes. Burnt fields yield no gold. You confused cruelty with competence. I tolerate the former, provided it serves a purpose. I have no patience for the latter. Mercy, Saint Figureland. Mercy. Naruto tilted his head. A flash of memory sparked behind his eyes, a different life, orange jumpsuits, a swing set, a desire to save everyone. That boy was dead. Or rather, that boy had learned that to save a forest, you sometimes had to burn the rot. You serve the gods, do you not? Pray to them. Naruto flicked his finger that he didn't touch the man. He didn't use a technique. He simply released a pulse of pure, concentrated will. Conqueror's hockey focused into a needle point. The CP0 agent's eyes rolled back. Foam gathered at the corner of his mouth as his nervous system was overwhelmed by the sheer spiritual pressure. He collapsed, unconscious before his head hit the floor. Dispose of him, Naruto said to the empty air. 2 members of the Holy Knights materialized from the shadows, armored and silent. They dragged the body away without a word. Naruto sighed, the oppressive aura vanishing instantly. He rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture of old habit. Boring. Everyone up here is so fragile. Perhaps you frighten them, young master. The new voice was dry, ancient. Saint Garling Figureland, the commander of the Holy Knights, stood in the doorway. His crescent moon hair and beard were sharp enough to cut glass, and his eyes held the same cold steel as Naruto's. Fear is a tool, father, Naruto replied, turning back to the view of the clouds. But it's a boring conversation partner. You play a dangerous game, walking without your helmet. Breathing the common air. Garling stepped closer, his presence like an unsheathed blade. The Gorosei are watching you. You've been erratic. Merciful to some, brutal to others. They wonder if the blood of the traitors runs in your veins. Let them wonder. Naruto's grip on the railing tightened, the marble dusting into powder under his gloved hand. I'm going out. Garling raised an eyebrow. Oh. A hunt? A vacation, Naruto corrected. He looked down, past the clouds, toward the deep blue sea that lay 10,000 meters below the red line. I'm going to fish Man Island. The fish tank? Garling scoffed. Why bother? Just have the specimens brought up. Fish lose their color when you take them out of the water, Naruto said, pushing off the railing. And I'm in the mood for something vibrant. The descent took hours, but Naruto refused to sit. That he stood at the prow of his private vessel, a sleek ship coated in the bubble resin of the Sabaody archipelago, as it sank deeper into the abyss. The light of the sun faded, replaced by the bioluminescent glow of the deep sea. Giant sea kings, massive serpentine monsters that could swallow galleons whole, drifted past in the crushing darkness. Most humans, even the arrogant nobles, felt a primal terror this deep. The pressure was enough to crush steel. One pop of the bubble, and they were dead. Naruto felt only peace. Inside his chest, the Ryu no Mi model, Kazuryu purred. The mythical Zoan fruit, the 9-headed dragon, thrived on the concept of storms and pressure. The ocean didn't scare him, it welcomed him. Saint Naruto, the captain of the ship whispered, sweat beading on his forehead despite the climate control. We are approaching the gateway. Should we signal for diplomatic entry? Diplomatic? Naruto glanced at the man. We are not diplomats, Captain. We are the wind. Sir. Ram the gate. The captain paled. But, the treaties, King Neptune, if the gate is closed, it means they believe they have the right to keep us out, Naruto said, his voice calm. Correct that misunderstanding. The captain scrambled to relay the order. The ship's engines flared. The massive vessel surged forward, bypassing the long queue of merchant ships and pirate submarines waiting for clearance. The border guards of Fish Man Island scrambled. Sirens blared, sending vibrations through the water. A massive steel gate began to close, intending to block their path. Naruto walked to the very edge of the bubble coating. He raised his right hand. Wind didn't exist underwater. Not naturally. But Naruto didn't deal in nature, he dealt in dominion. That he clenched his fist. Wind release, vacuum great sphere. Inside the bubble, a vortex of compressed air formed around his hand, shrieking like a banshee. He punched forward. The force traveled through the coating, transmuting the water pressure into a concussive shock wave. Boom, the underwater explosion was muffled, a deep, resonant thrum that shook the seabed. The massive steel gates of Fish Man Island didn't just open, they buckled. The hinges screamed and sheared off, the metal groaning as it was forced inward by the invisible hammer. Currents swirled violently, clearing the path. Proceed, Naruto said, smoothing his lapel. The ship glided through the broken entrance, descending into the breathtaking, illuminated cavern of Fish Man Island. The beauty of the place was undeniable. Giant coral forests stretched toward the artificial sunlight of the Eve tree. Mermaids darted through the water loops, their laughter dying instantly as they saw the emblem on the sails, the hoof of the celestial dragon. Panic spread like a plague. Shops closed. Mothers grabbed their children. The vibrant city turned into a ghost town in seconds. Naruto watched it all with a detached expression. They hate us, he murmured. They fear you, my lord, his personal guard corrected. Same thing, eventually. The ship docked at the royal port. King Neptune was already there, flanked by his 3 sons and a regiment of the royal army. The giant coelacanth. Merman looked imposing, holding his massive trident, but his eyes betrayed his anxiety. A celestial dragon visit was never a blessing, it was a natural disaster. The ramp extended. Naruto walked down alone. No guards. No slaves. Just a man in a white suit, looking around as if he were considering buying the scenery. Saint Figureland, King Neptune boomed, bowing low. It was a painful sight, a king bowing to a boy. We were not expecting the honor of your presence. Had we known, we would have prepared a feast. Naruto stopped a few feet from the king. He looked up, meeting the giant's gaze. You can stop trembling, Neptune. I didn't come here to steal your people. Neptune stiffened. Of course not. I came for the view, Naruto lied smoothly. He scanned the area, his observation haki spreading out like a radar, mapping the entire island in a heartbeat. He felt the resentment of the fishmen in the shadows. He felt the fear of the princes, and then, he felt a massive, overwhelming presence. A soul that felt like the ocean itself, vast and kind and terribly afraid that it was coming from the northeast. The hard shell tower. That tower, Naruto said, pointing a gloved finger. The one with the dents in it. What is it? Neptune's grip on his trident tightened. That is, the residence of my daughter, the Princess Shirahoshi. She is, unwell. Contagious, even. Liar, Naruto said. He didn't shout, but the word cracked like a whip. The princes, Fukaboshi, Roboshi, and Manboshi, stepped forward, protective instincts flaring. My sister has not left that tower in 10 years. Fukaboshi shouted, his voice tight. You cannot. Naruto vanished. That it wasn't speed the fishmen could comprehend. One moment he was standing on the dock, the next, he was standing behind Fukaboshi, his hand resting lightly on the prince's shoulder. Fast, Naruto whispered. Fukaboshi froze, cold sweat breaking out on his scales. He hadn't even seen the human move. Don't interrupt me when I'm speaking to your king, Naruto said, patting the prince's shoulder before walking past them. I'm borrowing the tower. I hear the view from the top is spectacular. Wait. Neptune shouted, desperation leaking into his voice. Saint Naruto, please. There is a madman, Vanderdeck Ken, he throws cursed weapons at the tower at all hours. It is a death trap. Naruto paused. He glanced back over his shoulder, a small, dangerous smile playing on his lips. A death trap. He chuckled. Sounds festive. The hard shell tower was a fortress, its metal doors scarred and battered by years of relentless assaults. It sat in the shadow of the coral reef, a monument to fear. Naruto didn't knock. He placed his palm on the massive doors. A pulse of chakra, refined and potent, surged through the metal. The locking mechanism shattered. With a groan of rusted hinges, the doors pushed open. The interior was dark, illuminated only by the faint bioluminescence of moss growing in the cracks. The air was stale. Who is there? The voice was soft, trembling, yet it carried a magnitude that shook the dust from the rafters. Naruto walked into the gloom. As his eyes adjusted, he saw her. She was colossal. Even curling in on herself in the furthest corner of the room, Princess Shirahoshi dwarfed him. Her pink hair cascaded around her like a waterfall, and her tail, striped and shimmering, was wrapped protectively around her body. Big, terrified blue eyes, brimming with tears the size of dinner plates, stared down at him. Are you, the assassin? She whimpered. Naruto stopped in the center of the room. He looked at the giant mermaid, then at the scattered weapons littering the floor, axes, swords, spears, all dulled by impact against the walls. You live in a junkyard, Naruto observed. Shirahoshi flinched. I am sorry. Please don't hurt me. Stop crying, Naruto said. It wasn't a command, it was a statement of fact. It's annoying. I can't help it. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I'm so scared. Naruto sighed. He walked over to a massive cushion, climbed up onto a stack of books, and sat down, crossing his legs. He watched her cry for a full minute, his expression unreadable. They call you the mermaid princess, he said eventually. But you look more like a prisoner. I have to stay here, she sniffled, peeking through her fingers. Dekan-sama, he throws things. If I go outside, I'll die. And if I move, the weapons might hit someone else. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Self-sacrifice. It was a noble trait, but without power, it was just suicide. So you sit here and wait to be murdered? I trust my father and brothers to protect me. Whoosh, the sound was faint, a whistle cutting through the air from the open window high above. Naruto's head snapped up. His observation haki caught the trajectory instantly. An enormous battle axe, taller than a man, was hurtling through the window, aimed with supernatural precision directly at Shirahoshi's heart. Shirahoshi screamed, curling into a ball. She didn't try to dodge. She just waited for the impact. She waited, and waited. The impact never came. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The human, the small man in the white suit, was standing on the arm of her sofa. His right arm was extended. He had caught the axe, he hadn't caught the handle. He had caught the blade, his gloved fingers pinching the sharpened steel as if it were a piece of paper. The kinetic energy of the throw had been immense, enough to shatter stone, but Naruto hadn't moved an inch. The air around his hand distorted, a swirl of invisible wind cushioning the impact. A crude weapon, Naruto remarked, inspecting the rusty iron. Poor balance. Cheap metal. Shirahoshi's jaw dropped. You caught it? It was thrown by a coward, Naruto said. Attacks made by cowards have no weight. He applied pressure. Crack, the steel axe shattered in his grip, fragments raining down onto the floor like confetti. Naruto dusted off his gloves and looked up at the giant mermaid. The boredom was gone from his eyes, replaced by a burning intensity that made Shirahoshi's heart hammer against her ribs. You have a choice, Shirahoshi, Naruto said. A choice. You can stay in this tower, crying until you drown in your own tears, waiting for a piece of rusty metal to finally get lucky, Naruto said, his voice hard. Or, you can wipe your face, come outside, and watch me break the man who threw it. But, it's dangerous outside, she cried. I know, Naruto grinned, and for the first time, the smile wasn't arrogant. It was wild. It was the smile of a fox seeing a challenge. I'm the most dangerous thing out there. He jumped down from the sofa and walked toward the door, the white coat flapping behind him like a cape. Coming, princess. Or are you going to stay a prisoner forever? Shirahoshi looked at the shattered axe on the floor. She looked at the small back of the man walking into the light. Her heart was racing, terrified, but for the first time in 10 years, curiosity was stronger than fear. Slowly, hesitantly, she uncoiled her tail. Wait. She whispered. Naruto stopped at the threshold, the light of the Fish Man Island plaza framing his silhouette. He didn't turn back, but he raised a hand, beckoning. Hurry up, he said. The world is waiting. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2, The Leviathan's Courtship. The silence that befell the hard-shell tower was heavy enough to crush bone, when the massive steel doors that had remained sealed for a decade, groaned open. The sound echoed across the Giantcord Plaza like a funeral bell. King Neptune, hovering anxiously with his ministers, gripped his trident so tightly his knuckles turned white. The royal army formed a perimeter, trembling not at an enemy, but at the potential wrath of the man inside. Then, he emerged. Saint Figureland. Naruto stepped into the artificial sunlight of the ocean floor, shielding his eyes with a gloved hand. He looked bored. Behind him, floating tentatively, was a creature of myth. Princess Shirahoshi hesitated at the threshold. She was a mountain of pastel scales and flowing silk, clutching the doorframe. Her eyes darted wildly, scanning the sky for falling axes, for arrows, for the death that had haunted her every waking moment since childhood. Out, Naruto said, snapping his fingers without looking back. The air is stale in there. But. Shirahoshi whimpered, shrinking back as a school of small fish darted by. Dekan-sama, he will know. Let him know, Naruto replied, adjusting his cuffs. Saint Naruto. King Neptune surged forward, his tail thrashing the water. What is the meaning of this? You cannot simply parade my daughter. Naruto turned his head. The movement was slight, but the killing intent radiating from him was a physical cold front that froze the water in the air. Neptune choked on his words. I am taking her for a walk, Naruto said calmly. Do not follow us. Your anxiety ruins the mood. He will kill her. Prince Fukaboshi shouted, stepping in front of his father. Vanderdecken's power is a curse. No matter where she goes, the weapons will find her. As if summoned by the prince's fear, the water pressure shifted. Far away, in the dark recesses of the Fish-Man district, a man screamed in rage. The sound didn't reach them, but the intent did. The ocean currents warped. Look out, a soldier screamed, pointing upward. It wasn't an axe this time, hurtling through the water, cutting a swath of vacuum bubbles in its wake, was a galleon. A shipwreck, rotted and covered in barnacles, massive enough to crush the entire plaza. It spun violently, aimed with supernatural malice directly at the pink mermaid cowering in the doorway. The shadow of the ship fell over them, blotting out the light of the Eve tree. Shirahoshi screamed, a high-pitched sound of pure terror. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the end. Naruto didn't look up. He sighed, a sound of profound disappointment. Garbage, he muttered. He throws garbage. The air around Naruto distorted. It wasn't the hockey this time. It was something more primal. His white suit rippled as his body began to shift. Canines elongated. His pupils narrowed into vertical slits, glowing a toxic, electric green. The shadows behind him seemed to writhe, manifesting 9 distinct, serpentine heads formed of swirling wind and chakra. Mythical Zoan, Ryu no Mi, model, Kazuryu. Naruto didn't fully transform, he didn't need to. He simply stepped forward and swept his right arm upward in a backhand motion, wind scythe, severing heavens. A blade of compressed air, invisible and razor-thin, erupted from his hand. It screamed as it tore through the water, defying the physics of the deep sea. The oncoming galleon didn't explode. It simply ceased to be whole. The wind blade bisected the massive ship from bow to stern. Then, the aftershocks hit, thousands of smaller vacuum blades shredding the wood into sawdust. In the span of a heartbeat, the lethal projectile was reduced to a cloud of harmless debris that rained down like snow. Silence returned to the plaza. Absolute, terrified silence. Naruto dusted a speck of sawdust off his shoulder. He looked at the cloud of debris, then turned his gaze toward the dark waters of the district miles away. His dragon eyes zoomed in, piercing the murky depths, locking onto a heat signature, a heartbeat, a twisted soul laughing on a ship in the dark. Found you, Naruto whispered. He raised his hand, pointing his index finger like a pistol. He inhaled. The atmosphere around him was sucked into a vacuum, the wind condensing at the tip of his finger into a ball of white energy the size of a marble. Bang! He released the pressure. The air bullet fired with the force of a cannon. It tore a tunnel through the ocean, vaporizing the water in its path. It traveled miles in a second. In the Fish-Man district, Vanderdecken 9 was laughing, preparing to throw a second ship. Suddenly, his shoulder exploded. The wind bullet punched clean through him, shattering his collarbone and pinning him to the mast of his ship. The shockwave knocked the Flying Dutchman sideways. Back in the plaza, Naruto lowered his hand, the smoke from the friction dissipating. He won't be throwing anything for a while, Naruto said, his voice returning to normal. He looked up at Shirahoshi, who was staring at him with a mixture of horror and awe. Are you hungry? I'm hungry. Mermaid Cove was usually a place of laughter and commerce. Today, it was a tomb. Naruto walked down the main street, his boots clicking on the coral pavement. Shirahoshi floated behind him, her massive body casting a long shadow, her hands clasped nervously to her chest. Every shop was closed. Every window was shuttered. The citizens of Fish-Man Island were hiding, peeking through cracks, terrified of the celestial dragon who had destroyed a galleon with a wave of his hand. Why is everyone hiding? Shirahoshi whispered, her voice trembling. Is it because of me? No, Naruto said, not breaking stride. It's because of me. They think I'm going to enslave them. Shirahoshi gasped. Are you? Naruto stopped. He turned to face her. They were an absurd pair, a human standing less than 6 feet tall, and a mermaid the size of a building. I have enough servants, Naruto said dryly. And slaves are boring. They do what they're told. I prefer people who have a backbone. He walked over to a shuttered stall. It was a takoyaki stand. The owner, a trembling octopus fishman, was crouching behind the counter. Naruto tapped on the wood. Open up. The fishman shrieked, popping up with his 6 arms raised in surrender. Please. Take it. Take it all. Don't shoot me. Naruto stared at him. I want 6 pieces. And, do you have anything sweet? She looks like she likes sugar. The fishman blinked, confused. He looked from the terrifying noble to the weeping princess. Sweet. I have sea plum candy, my lord. Good. Give her a bucket of it. Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out a gold coin, a currency worth more than the fishman's entire shop. He flicked it onto the counter. Keep the change. The fishman stared at the gold. He scrambled to work, frying the takoyaki with frantic speed. Minutes later, Naruto was leaning against a coral pillar, eating a hot octopus ball, while Shirahoshi tentatively held a bucket of candy, picking out the sweets with 2 fingers. It is delicious, she whispered, a small smile breaking through her tear-stained face. I haven't had sweets in 10 years. That's a crime worse than the assassination attempts, Naruto noted. Why are you doing this? Shirahoshi asked suddenly. The sugar seemed to have given her a frantic sort of courage. You are a world noble. My father says, he says your kind hates us. That you think we are fish. Naruto swallowed the food. He looked around the empty street, his eyes darkening. The world is a hierarchy, Shirahoshi. Big fish eat little fish. That is the law of nature, and it is the law of the world government. He looked up at her. You are a very big fish. Yet, you let a tiny shark like Vanderdecken lock you in a box. That offends me. I don't want to hurt anyone, she stammered. That is why you are weak, Naruto said. It wasn't cruel, it was clinical. Power isn't about hurting people. It's about having the capacity to hurt them, and choosing when to use it. If you are harmless, you are not virtuous. You are just a victim waiting to happen. He pushed off the pillar and floated upward, using the wind to levitate until he was eye level with her. You have a power inside you, he said softly, his voice dropping so only she could hear. I felt it when the ship fell. You didn't just scream for help. You commanded the ocean to save you. But you stopped yourself. Shirahoshi's eyes widened. I don't know what you mean. You do. Naruto reached out. For a moment, she flinched, expecting a strike. Instead, he poked her forehead. Stop crying. Tears blur your vision. If you want to protect your family, you need to see the enemy coming. Shirahoshi rubbed her forehead. The touch was warm. Will you teach me? She asked, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Naruto smirked. I charge a high tuition, princess. I have shells. Naruto laughed. It was a genuine, barking laugh that startled the hidden citizens of the cove. Keep your shells. For now, your company is payment enough. I haven't talked to anyone who didn't want something from me in a long time. He dropped back to the ground. Come on. I want to see the sea forest. I hear there's a grave there I should visit. As they walked away, the citizens of Fish Man Island slowly began to open their doors. They watched the monster in the white suit and their beloved princess. They didn't see a kidnapping, they saw a monster walking alongside a goddess, and for the first time, the monster looked like a man. Pangaea Castle, Mary Geos. The room of authority, the 5 elders sat in their high-backed chairs, the silence of the room punctuated only by the scratching of a quill. A den mushy on the central table projected the voice of a CP0 agent. Report, St. Topman Warcury grumbled, his mustache twitching. Target, St. Figureland Naruto, the agent's voice crackled, distorted by encryption. Location, Fishman Island. Incident report, he has engaged in combat with a local pirate, Vanderdeck Ken 9. He utilized a devil fruit ability consistent with the mythical Zoan class, though the precise model is unseen in our records. We know of his fruit, Saint Saturn dismissed. The Kazuryu. A relic of Wano's past we acquired decades ago. What of his behavior? There was a pause on the line. He has breached protocol. He extracted the ancient weapon Poseidon, Princess Shirahoshi, from her confinement. He is currently escorting her through the civilian districts. He purchased food. He is conversing with her. The air in the room grew cold. Is he enslaving her? Saint Mars asked, leaning forward. Negative, the agent replied. It appears to be courtship. Or perhaps mentorship. He is encouraging her to display strength. He used hockey to protect her, not to subdue her. Saint Jew Peter looked up, his eyes narrowing. Empathy. Connection. These are dangerous traits in a god. The Figureland bloodline has always been problematic, Saint Nustero murmured, fingering the hilt of his sword. Shanks. Garling. And now this boy. He walks the line between ruler and revolutionary. Keep watching, Warcury ordered. If he tries to bring the weapon to the surface, we will intervene. Protocol Uranus is on standby. Understood. The connection clicked off, Saturn tapped his cane on the floor. The boy is strong. Perhaps the strongest of this generation. But if he falls in love with a fish, then we will have to gut the fish, Mars finished, staring at the empty throne in the distance. For the sake of the world. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3, Blood in the Water the Sea. Forest was a graveyard of ships and memories, a place where the current slowed to a mournful crawl. In the center of the coral clearing stood the tomb of Queen Otoheim, a simple monument to a complex dream. Naruto stood before it, hands in his pockets, reading the inscription. Shirahoshi floated beside him, her hands clasped in prayer, her eyes closed. She wasn't crying, which Naruto considered a significant improvement over the morning. She believed that if we just understood each other, the fighting would stop, Shirahoshi said softly, opening her eyes. That living under the sun would heal the hatred. It's a nice thought, Naruto said, his tone neutral. But understanding doesn't stop a blade. It just tells you why the man is stabbing you. Shirahoshi looked down at him, a frown creasing her brow. You sound like my brothers. Like you don't believe in peace. I believe in peace, Shirahoshi. I just know the price of it. Naruto turned, his white coat fluttering in the deep sea current. Peace isn't a gift. It's a structure. You have to build it, and sometimes you have to build it on top of the people who want to tear it down. Before she could respond, a screech of feedback cut through the water, the massive monitor screen scattered throughout the forest, usually playing government announcements or advertisements, flickered. Static washed over the images, replaced by a dark, grainy feed. A face filled the screen. Pale blue skin, greasy black hair, and eyes that burned with a chemically induced madness. Hody Jones. Citizens of Fish Man Island, Hody's voice rasped, amplified across the entire kingdom. Rejoice. The era of the weak King Neptune is over. Shirahoshi gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, the camera zoomed out. The background was Giancourt Plaza. King Neptune was there, but he wasn't standing. He was chained to a pillar, beaten and bloody. The three princes, Fukaboshi, Roboshi, and Manboshi, lay unconscious at his feet, defeated by the sheer numbers of the new Fish Man pirates. We have captured the false king, Hody declared, holding up a handful of pills, energy steroids. He popped one into his mouth, his muscles spasming and bulging instantly. And today, we will execute him. We will purify this island of its sympathy for humans. And as for the celestial dragon who dares to pollute our waters. Hody leaned into the camera, his shark teeth bared in a grin of pure malice. I will mount his head on the gates of the Fish-Man district. Let the humans see that their gods bleed. The feed cut to black, silence returned to the sea forest, but the peace was gone. Father. Shirahoshi whimpered, her body trembling so violently the water around her vibrated. Brothers. I have to go. I have to save them. She turned to swim, panic overriding all logic, but a hand grabbed her tail. It was small, but it held her with the immovability of an anchor. Let go, she cried. They are going to kill him. If you go there now, you die, Naruto said. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the blank screen, his expression unreadable. Hody has an army. You have a size advantage, but you have no combat experience. You'll just be another hostage. I don't care, tears streamed down her face. He is my father. Saint Naruto. A new group arrived. A squad of armored men, their faces hidden behind masks, rushed into the clearing. CP0. The world government's shield. My lord, the lead agent said, bowing hastily. The situation has destabilized. A coup d'état is in progress. We have secured an escape route. We must evacuate you to the surface immediately. If a celestial dragon is harmed, an admiral will be summoned, and the Buster Call will destroy the island, Naruto finished. He looked at the agent. And you want me to run? We prioritize your safety, Saint, the agent insisted. These terrorists are on combat stimulants. It is an unnecessary risk. Naruto let go of Shirahoshi's tail. He looked at his gloved hand, flexing the fingers. Run, Naruto muttered to himself. He chuckled, a low, dangerous sound. Hody Jones threatens a god, and your solution is to hide the god. He turned to the agent. The air pressure in the forest dropped. The coral trees groaned. If I leave now, this island burns. If the island burns, the mermaid dies. If the mermaid dies, I lose my new pet. Naruto walked past the agent, heading toward the city. I don't like losing things. Saint Naruto, the agent shouted, reaching out to stop him. Naruto didn't look back. Stay out of my way, Cypher. Or I'll add you to the body count. He looked up at Shirahoshi, who was hovering, torn between fear and duty. Well? Naruto asked, his voice cutting through her panic. You wanted to learn how to be strong. Lesson 1, a queen does not run. She arrives. Giantcord Plaza was a sea of violence. 100,000 fishmen, all armed, all high on energy steroids, filled the square. They cheered as Hody Jones stood over the kneeling form of King Neptune. Any last words, old king? Hody sneered, raising a jagged blade. Will you beg for the humans to save you? Neptune spat blood. You are a fool, Hody. You know nothing of the true history. Nothing of the promise. History is written by the victors. Hody roared. He raised the blade high. And today, the fishmen win. Boom! A shockwave slammed into the center of the plaza. It wasn't an explosion. It was an arrival, dust and crushed coral billowed outward. The shockwave knocked the front row of pirates off their feet. Hody shielded his eyes, growling. As the dust settled, a crater was revealed. Standing in the center of it, pristine in his white suit, was Naruto. He stood with casual arrogance, one hand in his pocket, the other dusting off his lapel. He looked at the 100,000 soldiers surrounding him, then looked up at Hody. You're loud, Naruto said. His voice wasn't shouting, yet it carried across the entire plaza. I could hear your bad speech all the way from the forest. You. Hodee's eyes widened. A twisted grin spread across his face. The celestial dragon. You came to deliver yourself? Perfect. Kill him, a lieutenant screamed. Kill the human. 500 fishmen charged. They were fast, their bodies mutated by the drugs, weapons raised to tear the noble apart. Naruto didn't move. He didn't take his hand out of his pocket. He simply closed his eyes and exhaled. Conqueror's Hakai.it wasn't a wave, it was a hammer. The air turned gold. A physical pressure, heavy as the ocean depth itself, slammed down on the charging horde. The 500 attackers didn't just stop. Their eyes rolled white. They collapsed mid-sprint, foaming at the mouth, their wills shattered instantly against the iron wall of Naruto's spirit. The thud of 500 bodies hitting the ground at once echoed like a drumbeat. The cheering stopped. The remaining 99,000 pirates took a collective step back, sweat breaking out on their scales. What did he do? Someone whispered. He didn't even touch them. Naruto opened his eyes. The blue was gone, replaced by the vertical slit of the dragon. Is that it? Naruto asked, stepping over an unconscious body. I see a lot of trash, but no warriors. Hodee's face twisted in rage. He reached into his pocket and grabbed a handful of steroids, dozens of them. Don't mock me, human. Hodee screamed, shoving the pills into his mouth. His body convulsed. His muscles tore and rebuilt in seconds. His skin turned white, his hair bleached. He grew in size, towering over Neptune, radiating a berserk energy. I am the chosen one. I have been granted power by the heavens to destroy you. Hodee roared. He gathered water in his palm, compressing it into a droplet. Water shot. He fired. The water droplet flew faster than a bullet, aimed right at Naruto's skull. Naruto tilted his head that he caught the droplet, that he caught the water in his bare hand, the kinetic force dissipating instantly into a swirl of wind around his glove. He squeezed, and the water evaporated into steam. Power granted by the heavens? Naruto scoffed. He began to walk up the stairs toward Hodee. You ate a few pills and think you're a god. How cute. Die. Hodee launched himself off the execution platform. He was a blur of violence, his jaws snapping, his trident thrusting. Naruto met the charge. He didn't dodge. He sidestepped the trident by a millimeter, grabbed Hodee's wrist, and twisted. Bone snapped. Hodee screamed. Naruto didn't let go. He spun, using Hodee's own momentum to slam the massive fishman into the ground. The plaza cracked. You have no technique, Naruto said, delivering a wind-enhanced kick to Hodee's ribs. Crack. No discipline. Hodee scrambled back, coughing blood. He couldn't understand. He was stronger than ever. The pills gave him the strength of 1,000 men. Why? Hodee shrieked. Why are you so strong? You're just a weak human. Naruto stopped. He looked down at Hodee with genuine pity. Because my power comes from will, Naruto said, tapping his chest. Yours comes from a bottle. When the drug runs out, you're nothing. But I am always the storm. Hodee roared, his mind snapping. He rushed again, mouth open to bite Naruto's head off. Naruto's right arm shifted. Scales appeared. Claws replaced fingers, wind style, dragon claw. That he struck Hodee in the chest. The impact sent a shockwave through the fishman's body, exiting out his back. Hodee flew across the plaza, smashing into the cliff face, buried under tons of rubble. The army of fishmen stood frozen. Their leader, their invincible captain, had been swatted like a fly. Naruto turned to King Neptune. He sliced the chains with a flick of his finger. You okay, old man? Neptune stared at him, wide-eyed. You saved me. I told you, Naruto said, adjusting his suit. I was on vacation. He interrupted it. Rumble, the ground shook. A shadow fell over the plaza. It's not over, a pirate screamed, pointing up, above them, descending from the dark waters, was a nightmare. The Noah. The colossal ark, half the size of the island itself, was falling. Vander Deck Ken, bleeding out on the deck of the ship miles above, had used his final breath to touch the ship and target Shirahoshi. Since Shirahoshi had arrived at the edge of the plaza, the ship was coming down directly on top of them. The ark. Neptune gasped. If that hits, it will destroy the bubble. Fish Man Island will be crushed. It's too big, Naruto muttered, looking up. He could destroy a galleon. He could destroy a fleet. But a ship the size of a city? Even with the Kazuri of fruit, stopping that without destroying the island below it was problematic. Move! Naruto ordered the stunned crowd. Evacuate the plaza. But there was no time. The ship was seconds away. The air pressure was already crushing the buildings. No. Shirahoshi's voice cut through the chaos. She floated upward, swimming toward the falling doom. Shirahoshi. Get back. Neptune screamed. I won't let it hurt them. Shirahoshi cried out, tears streaming down her face. She reached her hands out toward the massive ship, her tiny form dwarfed by the falling mountain of wood. She screamed. Not a scream of fear. A scream of command. Stop. The ocean responded. From the deep abyss outside the bubble, shadows emerged. Enormous shadows. Eyes the size of islands, the Sea King's .3 massive creatures, monsters that even the Marines avoided, burst through the bubble coating. They didn't attack, they caught the ship. With a groan of ancient wood and metal, the Noah came to a halt, held aloft by the heads of the Sea Kings just meters above the plaza. The wind from the stop blew Naruto's hair back. The Sea Kings rumbled, a sound that vibrated in everyone's bones. They were looking at Shirahoshi. Waiting for orders. The battlefield fell silent. The pirates dropped their weapons. Neptune fell to his knees. Naruto stood amidst the wreckage, looking up. He watched the crying mermaid floating in the sky, surrounded by monsters that bowed to her will. The CP-0 agent, who had been hiding in the rubble, spoke into his wrist communicator, his voice trembling. Command, confirm. The rumors are true. She is Poseidon. Naruto didn't intervene. He smiled, a genuine, sharp smile. So that's it, he whispered to himself, the golden hockey in his eyes fading. She's not a victim. She's the weapon that can destroy the world. He looked at the trembling girl holding up the sky. Beautiful. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4, the red line crossing. The secret was out. The ocean currents carried gossip faster than any den mushi. By the time the Noah had been set back down on the ocean floor and the Sea Kings had retreated into the abyss, the news had spread. The mermaid princess was Poseidon. In the royal palace, the mood was funereal. King Neptune paced back and forth, his injuries bandaged, his face pale. We are finished, Neptune muttered, gripping his trident. The world government will not ignore this. They will come for her. They will cage her, or worse. They won't have to come for her, Naruto said. He was sitting on the king's throne, not out of disrespect, but simply because it was the most comfortable chair in the room. He was cleaning a smudge of dirt off his white boot. Because we are bringing her to them. The room went silent. The three princes stared at him in horror. Are you insane? Fukaboshi snapped, stepping forward. Take her to marry Gios. To the den of the people who enslaved our ancestors. You want to hand the ancient weapon to the Gorosei on a silver platter? I want to hide a tree in a forest, Naruto replied, looking up. Think, Prince. If she stays here, CP-0 will send assassins. They will poison her food, collapse her tower, or nuke the island just to be safe. But if she is at the reverie. He stood up, walking down the steps of the dais. If she is at the reverie, she is a guest of the world government. She is under my protection. And an attack on my guest is an attack on a celestial dragon. Naruto stopped in front of Shirahoshi, who was shrinking into herself. The safest place for a weapon is in the holster of the man who runs the world. But Shirahoshi trembled. The surface, the sun. It's bright, Naruto said. It burns a little. But the view is better than the bottom of a bowl. He held out his hand. Trust me. I haven't let you die yet, have I? Shirahoshi looked at the small hand. She looked at her father, who looked defeated. Then, she looked back at Naruto. In his eyes, she didn't see the madness of the humans she had been warned about. She saw a calm, blue steel. Slowly, she reached out her massive finger and touched his palm. I will go, she whispered. The ascent back to the surface was escorted by the highest power available. A marine battleship sailed alongside Naruto's vessel. Standing on the deck, wearing a yellow striped suit and a mantle of justice that draped lazily over his shoulders, was Admiral Kizaru. Naruto stood on the balcony of his ship, watching the water lighten from black to blue. Kizaru flickered, literally turning into light, and materialized on the railing beside him. Oh, Kizaru drawled, his voice slow and mocking. This is quite a mess you've made, Saint Figureland. Bringing a mermaid, and an ancient weapon, to the Holy Land. The fleet admiral is having a migraine. Akainu always has a migraine, Naruto said, not looking at the admiral. He thinks magma solves everything. It usually does, Kizaru chuckled. Behind the sunglasses, his eyes were sharp. But you solved a coup without calling us. You crushed Hody Jones. And my report says you used a mythical Zoan. We didn't know you were a combatant. A hobby, Naruto dismissed. A dangerous hobby, Kizaru mused. The elders are asking questions. They wonder why a celestial dragon fights like a warrior. It's unnatural. Naruto turned his head. The air between them crackled. Kizaru was an admiral, a force of nature, but Naruto was a world noble. Technically, Naruto owned him. Practically, Kizaru could vaporize him in a nanosecond if he went rogue. Tell the elders this, Naruto said softly. A gardener must know how to use shears. If I am to rule the world one day, I must know how to prune the weeds myself. Kizaru's smile didn't waver, but the tension in his shoulders tightened. Scary. You sound less like a noble and more like, well. Never mind. The ship breached the surface, sunlight, blinding and pure, flooded the deck. Ah! Shirahoshi gasped, shielding her eyes. She floated up from the pool installed on the deck. It's so bright. Naruto watched her. The fear on her face melted into wonder. She looked at the sky, endless and blue, and the clouds drifting like cotton. This is the sun, she whispered. That's the sun, Naruto confirmed. It's so big. Tears formed in her eyes again, but they were different this time. It's beautiful. Kizaru watched the scene, scratching his chin. Poseidon, crying over a cloud. The world is full of surprises. The Red Port was the gateway to God's land. It was a sterile, towering structure of white stone and steel, sitting at the base of the Red Line. The gondolas, massive bubble lifts, transported royalty and nobles up the sheer cliff face to Mary Geos. The arrival of the fish-man royalty caused a stir. Human kings and queens from other nations whispered behind their fans as the giant mermaid was escorted off the ship. They looked at her scales with disgust and her size with fear. Naruto walked at the front, his cane tapping rhythmically on the stone. Neptune and the princes flanked Shirahoshi, forming a protective wall. Keep your head up, Naruto commanded quietly, sensing Shirahoshi's urge to hide. If you look at the ground, they will step on you. Look them in the eye. They reached the waiting area for the gondola. The air was thick with tension. Well. What is that smell? The voice was nasally, wet, and dripping with entitlement. The crowd parted. Saint Charlos, a fellow celestial dragon, approached. He was sitting on the back of a giant, sobbing human slave. He wore the bubble helmet, his snot dripping down the inside of the glass. He held a pistol loosely in his hand. Naruto stopped. He didn't bow. Charlos, Naruto acknowledged. Figureland, Charlos grunted. He ignored Naruto and looked past him, his eyes widening as they landed on Shirahoshi. Whoa! That's a big fish. Shirahoshi trembled, clutching her father's arm. I want it, Charlos announced. He pointed his pistol at Shirahoshi. Hey! You! You're my slave now. I'm going to put you in the big aquarium. The one with the piranhas. Neptune growled. His hand moved toward his trident. Father, no. Fukaboshi hissed. If you strike him, the admiral, Kizaru was standing nearby, watching with his hands in his pockets. If Neptune attacked, Kizaru would take his head off. That was the law. I said come here. Charlos shouted. He kicked his human mount. Don't make me shoot your dad, fish. Charlos cocked the pistol. He aimed it at Neptune's chest. The plaza went silent. The other kings turned away, terrified to witness a massacre but powerless to stop it. Charlos, Naruto said. His voice was conversational. Shut up, Naruto. Charlos snapped. You have enough toys. This one is mine. Naruto sighed. He took a step forward. You're embarrassing us, Naruto said. I do what I want. I am a god. Charlos screamed. His finger tightened on the trigger, time seemed to slow. Neptune prepared to die. Kizaru prepared to kick. Naruto didn't move his body. He moved his will. Conqueror's haki, directed impact that it wasn't a wave that knocked out the weak. It was a sniper shot of spiritual pressure. Naruto focused the entirety of his killing intent, the malice of the nine-tailed fox, the weight of a Hokage, the rage of a dragon, onto a single point. St. Charlos's brain stem. Thud, Charlos didn't scream. His eyes rolled back into his head so hard the veins in his neck popped. He collapsed sideways, sliding off his human mount and hitting the pavement face first. The pistol clattered away, misfiring a shot into the air. The silence that followed was deafening. St. Charlos, his guards screamed, rushing to him. He collapsed. Naruto adjusted his glove. Heatstroke, he said loudly. The fool wears that helmet in the direct sun. His brain boiled. He looked at Kizaru. The admiral was staring at Naruto. His sunglasses had slid down his nose slightly. He had felt it. The burst of haki was so precise, so contained, that only a master would have noticed it. It was an assassination technique that left no physical evidence. Heatstroke, Kizaru repeated slowly. Yes. That sounds plausible. Naruto turned back to the trembling Charlos guards. Get him out of here. He's ruining the aesthetic. As the guards dragged the unconscious body away, Naruto turned to Neptune. The king was sweating profusely, his heart hammering. Let's go, Naruto said, gesturing to the gondola. The lift is waiting. You. Neptune whispered as they walked past. You attacked a world noble. I have no idea what you're talking about, Naruto replied, his face a mask of aristocratic boredom. Poor cousin Charlos. Always was sickly. They entered the bubble lift. The doors closed, sealing them off from the staring crowd. As the lift began to rise, carrying them up the side of the red line toward the Holy Land, Shirahoshi slumped against the glass wall. That man. She breathed. His eyes were so scary. He is a symptom of the disease, Naruto said, looking out at the receding ocean. Weak men given absolute power become monsters. And you? Shirahoshi asked. You have absolute power. Naruto looked at his reflection in the glass. He saw the blonde hair, the blue eyes, the expensive suit. I'm not a monster, Shirahoshi, he said quietly. I'm the doctor. And sometimes, the cure hurts more than the disease. The lift cleared the top of the clouds, before them lay Mary Geos. The land of gods. A sprawling paradise of white marble, lush forests, and crystal lakes. It was breathtakingly beautiful and utterly soulless. In the distance, the Pangaea castle stood like a tombstone over the world. Welcome to hell, Naruto muttered. It's shiny, Shirahoshi said, trying to be polite. Don't let the shine fool you, Naruto warned. The shadows here are deeper than the ocean floor. He stepped out of the lift, his cape snapping in the high-altitude wind. Stay close to me, he commanded. The hunt begins now. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5, The Summit of Wolves. The social plaza of the Pangaea Castle was a masterpiece of architectural intimidation. Chandeliers the size of houses hung from vaulted ceilings, dripping with diamonds that caught the light of 1,000 candles. The floor was polished marble, reflective enough to mirror the insecurities of the 50 monarchs gathered there. To the uninitiated, it was a party. To Saint Figureland Naruto, it was a hunting ground. He stood near a fountain of wine, vintage, older than most of the kingdoms represented here, swirling a glass he had no intention of drinking. The air was thick with the perfume of desperation. Kings and queens from the Four Blues and the Grand Line mingled, their smiles tight, their eyes darting around to see who was watching. They look like sheep wondering which one the butcher will pick first, Naruto murmured. Standing beside him, Princess Shirahoshi floated in her coral pink bubble ring. She was trying to make herself small, an impossible feat for a mermaid of her magnitude. Her hands were gripping the rim of her bubble so hard her knuckles were white. Everyone is staring, she whispered, her voice trembling. Let them stare, Naruto said, taking a sip of the wine and grimacing. Too sweet. You are the most powerful person in this room, Shirahoshi. And I don't mean politically. But King Stelly of the Goa Kingdom, he looked at me with such disgust. Stelly is a man who married into power and thinks it makes him tall, Naruto dismissed. He's a footstool pretending to be a throne. Ignore him. Naruto scanned the room. He saw them, the sparks of resistance in the dark. Princess Vivi of Alabasta was speaking in hushed tones with Rebecca of Dressrosa. They were the new generation, the ones who had seen the darkness of the warlords and survived. They were looking at Shirahoshi not with disgust, but with curiosity. And perhaps, hope. Go to them, Naruto said. Shirahoshi blinked. To whom? The blue-haired girl and the pink-haired gladiator, Naruto gestured with his glass. They have kind eyes. You'll like them. And they know what it's like to fight for their country. Will you come with me? I can't, Naruto said, his eyes hardening slightly as he spotted a group of men in white suits entering the far end of the hall. I have to deal with the wolves so the sheep can talk. He turned and walked away, the crowd parting around him like water around a shark. Naruto intercepted the approaching group near the balcony. It was a delegation from the world government's intelligence branch, led by a man Naruto recognized all too well. Rob Lucci. The masked assassin of CP0, unmasked for the gala, wearing his white suit with a terrifying elegance. Saint Figureland, Lucci said, bowing his head slightly. His leopard pigeon, Hattori, cooed on his shoulder. Enjoying the festivities? The wine is swill, Lucci, Naruto said flatly. And the conversation is boring. I assume you didn't come over here to discuss the hors d'oeuvres. The 5 elders request your presence, Lucci said. His voice was devoid of emotion, a perfect soldier. Immediately. In the room of authority. The music in the plaza seemed to dim. A summons to the room of authority was rarely a social call. It was usually a sentencing. Now. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I haven't even had a chance to dance. They were insistent. Naruto sighed, placing his glass on a passing waiter's tray. He glanced back at Shirahoshi. She was laughing now, talking animatedly with Vivi and Rebecca. She looked happy. Normal. Fine, Naruto said. Lead the way, dog. Lucci's eye twitched, but he turned and walked. The walk to the room of authority was a journey into silence. The opulent decorations of the castle faded, replaced by stark, imposing stone. The guards here weren't standard marines, they were holy knights, statuesque and emanating haki. They reached the massive double doors. Lucci stopped. I go no further, he said. Naruto didn't acknowledge him. He pushed the doors open and stepped inside. The room was vast, dominated by the seal of the world government on the floor. At the far end, sitting on a raised dais, were the 5 elders, the Gorosei, Saint Saturn, with his dreadlocks and cane. Saint Mars, tall and bird-like. Saint Mercury, the broad-shouldered man with the sprawling mustache. Saint V. Nusturo, the skeletal swordsman cleaning his blade. Saint Jupiter, the youngest looking, watching with cold eyes. The atmosphere in the room was crushing. It wasn't just political power, it was a physical weight. These men were monsters, ancient and terrible. Naruto walked to the center of the room. He didn't kneel. You called, he said. You are bold, Figureland, Mercury rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. You enter this room and do not show respect. I show respect to those who earn it, Naruto said, checking his fingernails. Or to those who can kill me. Which category do you think you fall into? Nusturo stopped cleaning his sword. The metal sang as he sheathed it. Careful, boy. Your bloodline grants you privileges, not immunity. Why did you bring the ancient weapon here? Saturn cut in, his eyes glowing with a faint red light. We gave no such order. I wanted a pet, Naruto lied, his heart rate steady. The fish tank at my estate was empty. She fits the aesthetic. Do not lie to us, Mars hissed. He stood up, his shadow stretching long and distorted across the floor. We have reports. You defended her against Charlos. You destroyed a pirate crew to save her kingdom. You treat her as an equal. Charlos is an idiot who was going to stain the pavement, Naruto countered. And as for the pirates, they annoyed me. Since when is pest control a crime? Jupiter leaned forward. You bear the will of the D, do you not? The rumors of your empathy concern us. A god does not love the insects. He rules them. Naruto felt the trap closing. They weren't just asking about Shirahoshi. They were probing his soul. They sensed the anomaly in him, the reincarnation, the foreign spirit that he needed to deflect. He needed to be the arrogance they expected. Naruto laughed. A cold, dismissive sound. Love? He scoffed. You think I love a fish? I am a Figureland. I collect rare things. She is the rarest thing in the world. If I want to keep her pristine, that is my prerogative. Would you scratch a diamond just to prove you own it? He let his own haki leak out. Just a fraction. The golden pressure clashed with the dark aura of the elders, creating static electricity in the air. I am the dragon that eats the moon, Naruto whispered, quoting his family crest. I do not answer to the stars. The elders stared at him. For a moment, the violence in the room was palpable. Nusturo's hand hovered over his sword hilt, then, Saturn sat back. Very well, Saturn said. Keep your pet. But be warned, Naruto. The great cleansing is approaching. If you stand in the way of the tide, you will drown with the rest of the filth. I am the tide, Naruto said, turning his back on them. Don't get your robes wet. He walked out. As the doors boomed shut, Mercury looked at Saturn. He is lying. Of course he is, Saturn agreed. His eyes, they are not the eyes of a noble. They are the eyes of a warrior. He is dangerous, Nusturo murmured. We should extinguish his light. Not yet, Mars said, looking at the ceiling, toward the empty throne. Imusama has not spoken. But keep the mother flame ready. If the boy steps out of line again, we erase him. Naruto exhaled as he stepped back into the corridor. His shirt was stuck to his back with sweat. Old monsters, he muttered, shaking out his hands. That had been close. They were stronger than he expected. Much stronger. Even with the Nine-Tails fruit, fighting all five at once would be suicide. That he needed allies. He needed an army. That he returned to the social plaza. The party was in full swing. The music had changed to a waltz. That he found Shirahoshi. She was still with Vivi and Rebecca, but she looked anxious again, her eyes scanning the crowd for him. When she saw him, her face lit up like a sunrise. Naruto-sama, she called out, forgetting protocol. Naruto walked over to them. He nodded to Vivi and Rebecca. Princess Vivi. Princess Rebecca. I trust you are keeping my guest entertained. She is wonderful, Vivi said, her voice guarded but polite. She was analyzing him, trying to reconcile the monster she'd heard about with the man standing before her. We were discussing the ocean. A vast topic, Naruto said. He turned to Shirahoshi, the music swelled. It was a slow, sweeping orchestral piece. Shirahoshi, Naruto said. He bowed, extending his hand. May I have this dance? The circle of royals around them went silent. A celestial dragon dancing with a mermaid? It was unheard of. It was scandalous. I don't know how, Shirahoshi stammered, blushing a deep crimson. And I am too big. You're not too big, Naruto said. The room is too small. He stepped forward. He didn't take her hand, his hand was too small to hold it properly. Instead, he placed his hand gently on one of her fingers. Follow my lead. Naruto activated his devil fruit, but subtly. He manipulated the air currents around them. Up, he whispered. Shirahoshi gasped as her bubble ring lifted. Naruto lifted with her, walking on the air as if it were solid stairs. They rose above the crowd, 10 feet, 20 feet, hovering in the center of the vaulted ballroom. The other guests gasped, looking up. Ignore them, Naruto said, locking eyes with her. Look at me. He began to move. He guided her through the air, the wind pushing her bubble gently, syncing her movements with his. It was a dance of flight. He spun, and she spun with him, her massive tail flowing like a ribbon of silk. That it was breathtaking. For a moment, she wasn't a weapon. She wasn't a prisoner. She was a girl, dancing with a boy, weightless and free. I'm flying, she laughed, a sound of pure joy that echoed off the crystal chandeliers. You were always meant to fly, Naruto said, smiling. Below them, King Cobra of Alabasta watched with narrowed eyes. That man. Cobra whispered to King Riku. He is protecting her. Visibly. Publicly. Is it a whim? Riku asked. Or a statement? It's a declaration of war, Cobra said, clutching his chest where his illness pained him. He is telling the world government that she belongs to him, and he is daring them to take her. Up in the air, the music reached a crescendo. Naruto spun Shirahoshi one last time, bringing them slowly back down to the floor. As the final note held, they landed softly. The room was silent for a heartbeat, and then, surprisingly, people began to clap. Not the celestial dragons, they looked horrified, but the kings and queens of the lower nations. The applause grew, genuine and warm. Shirahoshi's face was glowing. She looked at Naruto. Thank you, she whispered. That was the best moment of my life. The night is young, Naruto said. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that only she could hear. But listen to me closely, Shirahoshi. The fun part is over. Tonight, while you sleep, I need you to stay awake. Keep your haki active. If you sense anything at all, you scream. Shirahoshi's smile faltered. Why? Naruto looked over her shoulder, toward the shadows where Rob Lucci was watching them with cold, predator eyes. Because the wolves are hungry, Naruto said. And we just put on a show. Later that night. The guest quarters, Naruto did not sleep. He sat in a chair facing the door of his suite, his sword, a Mito he had taken from a pirate captain, resting across his knees. There was a knock. Soft. Rhythmic. Enter, Naruto said. The door opened. It wasn't an assassin, that it was King Cobra. The ruler of Alabasta looked frail, moving with a wheelchair, but his spirit was unbroken. Saint Figureland, Cobra said, bowing his head. King Cobra, Naruto didn't rise. It's late for a social call. And dangerous. If you are seen entering my room, people will talk. Let them talk, Cobra said. He rolled his wheelchair into the room, closing the door. I have little time left. I cannot afford to be cautious. You want to ask about the poneglyphs, Naruto said. Cobra froze. How? I know a lot of things, Naruto said. I know your family was one of the original 20 who refused to ascend to marry Geos. I know you are technically a traitor to the blood. And I know you plan to ask the 5 elders about Queen Lily tomorrow. Cobra's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. You are spying on me. I am protecting you, Naruto corrected. If you ask that question tomorrow, you will never leave this holy land alive. Cobra went pale. Is the truth, that forbidden? The truth is the only thing they fear, Naruto said. He stood up and walked over to the king. He placed a hand on Cobra's shoulder. Do not ask the question, Cobra. Go home. Abdicate. Let Vivi rule. Live out your days in the sun. I cannot, Cobra said, tears forming in his eyes. I must know what happened to my ancestor. It is my duty. Naruto looked at the old man. He saw the will of fire in him. The stubborn resolve to die for the truth. You are a fool, Naruto said softly. But a brave one. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small transponder snail. It was black, distinct from the standard models. Take this, Naruto said, placing it in Cobra's hand. What is it? If things go wrong, and they will go wrong, press the button, Naruto said. It won't save you. But it will save your daughter. Cobra looked at the snail, then up at Naruto. Who are you? You are not a celestial dragon. Not really. Naruto walked to the window, looking up at the red moon. I'm just a gale, Naruto said. Passing through. Cobra hid the snail in his robes and turned to leave. At the door, he paused. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet, Naruto replied, his back turned. The storm is just beginning. As the door clicked shut, Naruto's eyes narrowed. He sensed it, far below the castle, in the deepest vault, something massive was stirring. A cold, metallic energy that tasted like death. Protocol Uranus, the engine was warming up. Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6, The God's Night. The moon over Mary Geos was wrong. To the common folk down on the blue sea, the moon was a distant, comforting orb. Up here, atop the red line, it hung fat and oppressive, suspended too low in the sky, like a silver coin threatening to drop and crush the world. Naruto walked through the garden of the gods, his footsteps silent on the cobblestones. The party had ended hours ago. The kings were asleep, dreaming of lower taxes or higher tributes. The guards had changed shifts. The silence was absolute, but it wasn't empty. Naruto stopped near a fountain depicting the first 19 kings driving swords into the earth. He didn't turn around. You're loud tonight, father, Naruto said. The shadows beneath a massive oak tree coalesced. A figure stepped out. Saint Garling Figureland did not look like an old man. Despite the white hair shaped into a sharp crescent moon and the beard to match, he moved with the fluid, predatory grace of a tiger. He wore the uniform of the Holy Knights, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his saber. You sensed me, Garling noted, his voice like dry leaves scraping over stone. Your observation hockey has sharpened. Better than the CP0 dogs. They look at the world through keyholes, Naruto said, turning to face the commander of the Holy Knights. I look at the door. And what do you see? I see a house that's about to burn down. Garling smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a baring of teeth. You have been busy, my son. Defying the elders. Courtship with an ancient weapon. Colluding with the Nefertari bloodline. Garling drew his sword. The blade was black, not from paint, but from decades of permanent hockey infusion. The elders want you dead. They say you are a weed choking the garden. And you? Naruto asked, his hands hanging loose by his sides. Are you here to do the gardening? I am here, Garling said, raising the blade, to see if you are a weed, or a tree strong enough to survive the storm. Boom, there was no signal. No, start. Garling simply vanished that in the space of a microsecond, the distance between them closed. The black blade slashed horizontally, aimed at Naruto's neck. It was a killing stroke. There was no hesitation, no parental love. Just execution. Naruto didn't dodge. Clang, the sound was deafening, a bell tolling for the end of the world. Naruto had raised his left arm. His sleeve was shredded, revealing a limb coated in armament hockey so dense it shone with a metallic, gunmetal blue sheen. He had caught the blade on his forearm, sparks showered around them like fireworks. The ground beneath their feet spider-webbed, the cracks racing outward to the fountain, shattering the stone statues. Not bad, Garling grunted, pressing down. The sheer weight of his strength was enough to flatten a mountain. I'm just getting started, Naruto snarled. Mythical Zoan, hybrid form. Wind exploded from Naruto's body. His eyes turned into vertical slits. Canines lengthened. His free hand morphed into a claw, swathed in swirling green chakra and black lightning that he punched. Garling's eyes widened. He disengaged instantly, leaping back 20 feet. Naruto's punch hit the air where Garling had been. Wind style, vacuum cannon. The air pressure collapsed. A cylinder of vacuum blasted forward, tearing a trench through the manicured garden, obliterating trees, hedges, and statues in a straight line for half a mile. The attack didn't stop until it hit the outer wall of the castle, punching a clean hole through the adamantine stone. Garling landed on top of a gazebo, looking at the destruction. He laughed. Ferocious. That isn't the gentle style the tutors taught you. The tutors taught me how to fence, Naruto said, the wind whipping his blonde hair around his face. He crouched, the aura of the nine-headed dragon manifesting behind him like a spectral hydra. I taught myself how to kill. Good. Garling roared. Show me. Show me why you deserve the name Figureland. He leaped from the gazebo, swinging his sword. Divine departure. A massive wave of crimson hockey, shaped like a crescent moon, tore through the air. It was the same technique Shanks used. A technique of emperors. Naruto didn't back down. He inhaled, his chest expanding. The dragon heads behind him mirrored the action. Sage art, roar of the Gale god. Naruto screamed. It wasn't a sound, it was a physical wall of sound and wind, infused with Conqueror's hockey. The two attacks collided in the center of the garden. Red lightning met green wind, the sky cracked, the clouds above Mary Geos were split in two, revealing the stars. The shockwave flattened the entire garden instantly. The gazebo disintegrated. The fountain vaporized. For a moment, they were locked in a stalemate of pure power, the ground liquefying beneath them. Then, the explosion threw them both back. Naruto skidded across the ruined earth, digging his claws in to stop himself. He panted, blood trickling from a cut on his cheek. His suit was tattered, his tie gone. Garling landed on his feet, sliding only a few inches. He lowered his sword. He wasn't panting. But there was a cut on his cheek, mirroring Naruto's. The old knight reached up, touched the blood, and looked at it. You drew blood, Garling whispered. I aimed for the neck, Naruto admitted, standing up straight. Garling stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he sheathed his blade. The killing intent vanished as quickly as it had appeared. You are not a weed, Garling decided. You are a monster. Is that a compliment? In this family? It is the highest honor. Garling walked toward him, ignoring the devastation they had caused. The elders fear you because they cannot control you. I respect you because you are strong. But strength alone will not save you from what is coming. Garling stopped a few feet away. His expression turned grave. Do you know why I tested you tonight? To see if I was worth killing. To see if you were worth warning, Garling corrected. He looked up at the red moon. The throne is not empty, Naruto. Naruto froze. He knew this, from his past life's intuition, from the way the world worked. But hearing it confirmed was different. Imu, Naruto whispered. Garling's eyes snapped to him. Do not speak the name. Names have power. It has awakened. The light you hold, the mermaid, has drawn his attention. And the questions King Cobra asks have sealed his fate. They're going to kill Cobra, Naruto realized. Tomorrow, Garling confirmed. In the throne room. And if you interfere, not even I can stop the consequences. The mother flame will be unleashed. An island will be erased to make a point. Naruto clenched his fists. Why tell me this? You're his dog, aren't you? Garling looked at his son. For the first time, there was something akin to sadness in the old killer's eyes. I am the Knight of God, Garling said. But even a knight wonders if the king is mad. You have the eyes of a conqueror, Naruto. Not a ruler. A ruler sits on a throne. A conqueror changes the world. He turned and began to walk away into the darkness. Leave, Garling said over his shoulder. Take your mermaid. Take your ship. Leave before the sun sets tomorrow. If you are still here when the judgment falls, I will have to kill you for real. Father, Naruto called out. Garling paused. I'm not running, Naruto said. I'm just moving the battlefield. Garling didn't reply. He faded into the shadows, leaving Naruto alone in the ruin of the garden. Naruto returned to the guest quarters. He moved stiffly, his ribs bruising from the impact of the divine departure. He didn't go to his own room. He went to the door adjoining his suite. He opened it quietly. The room was dark, illuminated only by a nightlight. A massive bed, custom-made, occupied most of the space. Shirahoshi was awake. She was sitting up, hugging a pillow, her eyes wide and terrified. She had felt the Haki clash. Every living thing on the red line had felt it. Naruto-sama, she whispered, seeing his silhouette. You're bleeding. Naruto closed the door and locked it. He walked over to the bed and sat on the edge, groaning slightly as he sat. I had a disagreement with my father, Naruto said, wiping the blood from his cheek with his thumb. Was it about me? It's always about you, Shirahoshi. You, and the world, and who gets to decide its shape. He looked at her. She looked so fragile, despite her size. A weapon capable of sinking continents, terrified of a thunderstorm. I have to tell you something, Naruto said. And I need you to listen, not as a princess, but as a warrior. Shirahoshi straightened up, trying to look brave. I am listening. We are leaving tomorrow. But we aren't going back to Fish Man Island. Where are we going? To war, Naruto said simply. Shirahoshi gasped. War. But I don't want to fight. I know, Naruto said. He reached out and placed his hand on hers. But the fight is coming to us. The people who run this world, they aren't people. They are shadows. And they want to turn off the lights. He took a deep breath. He had never told anyone the truth. Not in this life. But if she was to be his partner, she needed to know. Shirahoshi, do you believe in reincarnation? She blinked. Reincarnation? I I haven't always been this, he gestured to his body, his fancy clothes, the luxury room. I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I was born with nothing. I was hated. I was alone. I had a demon inside me. Shirahoshi listened, entranced. The tone of his voice had changed. It wasn't the arrogant saint. It was the lonely boy. I fought for a lifetime to earn respect, Naruto continued, staring at the floor. I saved my world. I became the leader. I thought I had finished my job. He looked up, his blue eyes burning with the will of fire. But then I woke up here. In this place. Surrounded by monsters who think they are gods. Why? Shirahoshi whispered. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want you to think I'm protecting you because you're a weapon, Naruto said fiercely. I'm protecting you because I know what it's like to be treated like one. Tears welled in Shirahoshi's eyes. She understood. The loneliness. The fear of one's own power. The isolation. You are like me, she realized. I am, Naruto smiled, a sad, genuine smile. So, no more crying. We are two monsters against the world. Okay. Shirahoshi wiped her eyes. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling. The fear didn't vanish, but it settled. It became resolve. Okay, she said. Where do we go? First, Naruto stood up, wincing. We have to save a king who is too stubborn to save himself. Then, we break the sky. He walked to the window and looked out at the dark castle. Get some sleep, Poseidon. Tomorrow, we make the gods bleed. Chapter 6 End. Chapter 7, The Great Cleansing begins. The Room of Flowers was beautiful, a sanctuary of vibrant petals and sweet scents hidden within the steel heart of the Pangaea castle. But to King Cobra of Alabasta, it felt like a mausoleum that he sat in his wheelchair, the wheel sinking slightly into the plush carpet, facing the 5 men who ruled the world. The Gorosei stood in a semicircle, their expressions unreadable, their presence radiating a quiet, suffocating pressure. You requested this audience to discuss the history of your family, Nefertari Cobra, Saint Saturn said, his voice scratching like parchment. Speak quickly. The reverie is concluding. Cobra's hands trembled on his lap, but his voice was steady. I have studied the ancient texts. Of the 20 kings who founded the world government 800 years ago, only the Nefertari family refused to ascend to marry Geos. We chose to remain with our people. That is common knowledge, Saint Warkiri grunted. Yes, Cobra agreed. But Queen Lily, my ancestor who made that choice, her name is erased from the records following the Void Century. She never returned to Alabasta. I ask you, what happened to her? The air in the room grew cold. The flowers seemed to wilt. We do not know, Saint Nustro said, his hand resting on his sword. She likely died on her journey home. It was a chaotic era. One more question, Cobra pressed, his heart hammering against his ribs. He knew, instinctively, that he was stepping off a cliff. In her final letter, she wrote a single phrase. A phrase about the dawn. And she signed it. Nefertari D. Lily. Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. Then, a sound came from behind the empty throne. The distinct clack-clack-clack of footsteps ascending the stairs. Cobra's eyes widened. Someone is sitting on the empty throne. The Gorosei didn't look surprised. They knelt. They bowed their heads to the floor, their absolute authority vanishing instantly in the presence of the shadow that now occupied the seat of the world. Imusama, they chanted in unison. Cobra stared in horror. The silhouette on the throne was wrong. It was humanoid, but the eyes were red concentric circles, ripples in a pool of blood. They stared at him not with anger, but with the cold indifference of a boot regarding an ant. Lily, a voice spoke. It didn't come from a mouth, it echoed in Cobra's skull. Her blunder scattered the poneglyphs. The error that birthed the pirates. You. Cobra gasped. You are from the Void Century. Kill him, Imo commanded. The Gorosei rose. But they were no longer men. Shadows erupted from their bodies, monstrous, twisted shapes. A bird, a boar, a spider, a worm, a horse. Nightmare fuel incarnate. A shadow arrow pierced Cobra's shoulder. He cried out, blood splattering the flowers. This is the end, Cobra thought, closing his eyes. Vivi, forgive me. Bzzzt, the black transponder snail in Cobra's pocket, the one Naruto had given him, vibrated. It didn't ring. It shrieked. A high-pitched frequency that shattered the glass windows of the room. Boom, the wall of the room of flowers exploded. It wasn't a rescue team. It was a column of fire. Sabo, the chief of staff of the Revolutionary Army, burst through the smoke, grabbing the wheelchair. King Cobra. Sabo shouted. Hang on. Fire fist. Cobra gasped. Sabo turned to run, but the shadows were faster. They lashed out, tendrils of darkness seeking to devour them both. Go. Cobra screamed, pushing Sabo away. Tell Luffy. Tell Vivi. We are D. Sabo hesitated, but another shadow pierced Cobra's chest. The king slumped. Run, Sabo. Sabo gritted his teeth, tears in his eyes, and launched himself out the window, carrying the weight of the truth. Inside the room, Imo watched the dying king. The secret is out, Imo noted. The flame, use the flame. Erase it all. The guest quarters. Naruto stood by the window, his back rigid. He felt it, the hockey signature of King Cobra had flickered and dimmed, like a candle in a hurricane. And beneath it, he felt something else. A darkness so profound it made the nine tails inside him growl in warning. Kurama, that presence, it's not human, Naruto. It feels like the 10 tails. I know, Naruto whispered. He turned to Shirahoshi. She was packing a small bag, her hands shaking. Leave the bag, Naruto ordered. His voice was sharp, cutting through the tension. But, my mother's picture. We are not taking souvenirs, Naruto said. He walked over and grabbed her hand. We are running for our lives. Right now. He didn't wait for her to argue. He dragged her out of the room. The corridor was already in chaos. Guards were running toward the Pangaea castle. Alarms were blaring, a sound reserved for invasions. Saint Naruto. A squad of holy knights blocked the hallway. Halt. The castle is under lockdown. By order of the Gorosei, no one is to leave. Naruto didn't slow down. Move, he said. We have orders to detain you if. Naruto's eyes flashed gold. He didn't use a technique. He simply ran through them. He coated his shoulder in hockey and slammed into the leader like a freight train. The knight flew backward, knocking down the 3 men behind him with the sound of crunching armor. Naruto kept running, pulling Shirahoshi along. She floated behind him, struggling to keep up with his pace. Naruto-sama. What is happening? The king is dead, Naruto said grimly. And they're going to blame us. Or Sabo. Or anyone who isn't them. They burst out of the castle and onto the main thoroughfare of Mary Geos. The red port was miles away. The gondolas were shut down. We can't take the lift, Naruto assessed. He looked at the edge of the red line. The sheer cliff dropped 10,000 meters to the sea. We have to jump, he said. Shirahoshi went pale. Jump? From here? You're a fish, Naruto said. You'll survive the water. I'll handle the fall. Rumble, the sky groaned. That it wasn't thunder. It was the sound of the atmosphere being torn apart. The artificial sunlight of Mary Geos flickered and died, replaced by an eerie violet glow. Naruto looked up, high above the clouds. Something was gathering. A swirl of energy, dark purple and crackling with black lightning. It was targeting the sea directly below the red line, their escape route. They aren't just locking us in, Naruto realized, his blood running cold. They're nuking the exit. If that beam hit the water, the resulting shockwave would vaporize anything within 50 miles. Tsunami waves would swallow fleets. Change of plan, Naruto snapped. Shirahoshi, listen to me. When I say jump, you dive. You summon every sea king you can find. You tell them to catch you. But, what about you? I'm going to punch the sky. What? Go. Naruto grabbed her by the waist and hurled her. With his superhuman strength, he threw the massive mermaid over the edge of the cliff. She screamed as she plummeted into the clouds below. Naruto didn't follow immediately. He turned his back to the cliff and looked up at the gathering apocalypse. The clouds parted. A beam of pure energy, thick as a mountain, began to descend. It was the Mother Flame. A weapon of mass destruction. Naruto closed his eyes. He centered his chakra, Kurama mode. A golden shroud erupted around him. 9 chakra tails flared out, blazing like the sun. His coat disintegrated, revealing the glowing seal on his stomach. Let's see if this world's gods can bleed, Naruto roared. He crouched, cracking the bedrock of the red line. Boom. He launched himself upward. Straight into the path of the beam. To the onlookers in Mary Geos, the nobles, the guards, the slaves, it looked like a golden spark flying into a violet sun. Naruto met the beam 5,000 meters in the air. The heat was instantaneous. It stripped the skin from his face, healing instantly thanks to the 9 tails regeneration. The pressure was like holding up a falling moon. Kuri! Naruto screamed mentally. Give me everything. Kurama, don't die, you brat. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his right hand. He infused it with wind style. Then he added the tailed beast bomb. It grew, expanding until it was a massive, swirling sphere of black and gold energy, shrieking with the sound of 1,000 storms. Sage Art, tailed beast planetary Rasen Shuriken. He slammed the attack into the Mother Flame. The collision was silent for a split second, then, light, white, blinding light swallowed the sky. The shockwave didn't go down. Naruto forced it out. The explosion bloomed horizontally, a ring of fire that scattered the clouds for hundreds of miles. The Mother Flame's beam was fractured, its energy dispersed into a rain of violet sparks that fell harmlessly into the ocean, but the recoil was catastrophic. Naruto's arm shattered. The force of the deflection spiked him downward like a meteor. He fell past the red line. He fell past the clouds. He was unconscious before he hit the terminal velocity. The golden mode flickered and died. He was just a boy, falling into the abyss. The blue sea, the ocean churned. The dispersed energy of the Mother Flame caused the waters to boil, but the devastation was avoided. Shirahoshi hit the water. She dove deep, her heart screaming in terror. Help him, she cried out into the darkness. Please. Someone. Anyone. The water vibrated. From the depths, 3 massive shapes rose. The Sea Kings. They had heard the call of their queen. One of them, a striped giant, breached the surface. It opened its massive mouth, not to eat, but to catch. The tiny, broken figure of Naruto fell from the sky. The Sea King caught him gently on its tongue, cushioning the impact with slime and muscle. It closed its mouth, submerging instantly to protect him. Shirahoshi swam to the creature, tears streaming from her eyes mixed with the ocean. She sensed his heartbeat. Faint. Erratic. But there. He is alive, she sobbed. We hear you, Queen. The Sea King's voices echoed in her mind. Where do we go? Shirahoshi looked back up at the red line, towering above them. High up on the cliff, alarms were still blaring. The world had changed. Away, she commanded. Take us far away. To the new world. Mary Geos. The broadcast room. Saint Saturn stood before the golden Den Mushi. His suit was unrumpled, his face calm. "Broadcast this to the world," he ordered the technician nodded, flipping the switch. Screens across the world, in Sabaody, in Dressrosa, in Wano, lit up. "Attention, citizens of the world," Saturn's voice intoned. "A tragedy has occurred at the Reverie." The image on the screen changed. It showed a grainy photo of King Cobra lying dead in a pool of blood. And standing over him, a doctored image, clearly, was Sabo. King Cobra of Alabasta has been assassinated by the Revolutionary Army Chief of Staff, Sabo. The Flame Emperor has declared war on order itself. The world gasped. Furthermore, Saturn continued, "We have uncovered a conspiracy within our own ranks. Saint Figureland Naruto has been found guilty of aiding these terrorists. He has betrayed his blood, attacked the Holy Knights, and attempted to destroy the Holy Land." A picture of Naruto appeared on the screen. The word traitor was stamped across it in red. His status as a world noble is hereby revoked. His immunity is stripped. He is designated a Priority 1 criminal. Bounty, to be determined. Dead or alive? Saturn paused, his eyes narrowing. The light of justice will prevail. The transmission CUT'd and IN the printing press of the World Economic Journal. Big News. Morgans was dancing on his desk. Big news. Big news. Morgans cackled, feathers flying everywhere. The king is dead. The god is a traitor. The princess is missing. This is the scoop of the century. He grabbed his pen. Write it down. Title it, The Fallen Dragon. Somewhere in the New World. On the deck of the Red Force, Shanks sat drinking sake. He felt the shift in the wind. The sky to the west was still shimmering from the explosion. "Boss," Beckman walked up, holding a wanted poster that had just come off the Seagull press. Shanks took the paper. He looked at the face of the young man, the boy who looked so much like him, yet burned with a fire he hadn't seen since Roger. Traitor Saint Naruto. Bounty, 3 billion berries. Only alive, amended, Shanks smiled. A real, Declan grin. "So," Shanks murmured, looking at the horizon. "You finally jumped, kid." He poured a second cup of sake and poured it into the ocean. "Welcome to the Great Pirate Era, Naruto." Chapter 7 End. Chapter 8, The Admiral's Justice. The island of Risky Red was a graveyard of volcanoes, a jagged cluster of crimson rock jutting out of the New World Sea like the broken teeth of a giant. The air smelled perpetually of sulfur and ash. It was a place where no log post pointed, a blind spot on the map. In a shallow cave near the shoreline, Naruto woke up. Pain was the first thing he registered. It wasn't the sharp sting of a cut, it was a deep, throbbing ache in his marrow. His right arm, the one that had punched the mother flame, was encased in a thick, gel-like substance that smelled of medicinal seaweed. "You are awake." Shirahoshi's face hovered over him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but dry. She looked different. The pristine mermaid of the tower was gone. Her hair was tangled with salt, her fin was scraped, and there was a smear of soot on her cheek. She looked like a survivor. "How long?" Naruto rasped, sitting up. His chest screamed in protest. 2 days, Shirahoshi said, handing him a coconut shell filled with fresh water. "The Sea Kings brought us here. They said the magnetic currents are unstable, so the world government cannot track us easily." Naruto drank the water in one gulp. He looked at his bandaged arm. The chakra network was fried, but healing. Kurama was silent, likely sleeping to recover the massive expenditure of energy. 2 days, Naruto muttered. "That's too long. They'll find us." "Who will find us?" "The dogs," Naruto said, swinging his legs off the stone slab. He stood, swaying slightly. "When you embarrass the world government, they don't send bounty hunters. They send an eraser." Boom, the ground shook. It wasn't an earthquake. It was an impact. Naruto's head snapped toward the entrance of the cave. His observation haki, usually a calm radar, screamed a warning so loud it felt like a migraine. The temperature in the cave spiked instantly. The water in the coconut shell began to steam. "He's here," Naruto whispered. "Who?" Shirahoshi asked, trembling. "The red dog." Naruto walked out of the cave and onto the beach. The sky was no longer blue. It was choked with black smoke. The ocean, usually restless in the New World, was eerily calm, boiling near the shoreline. Standing on a jagged outcrop of rock 50 yards away was a man. He wore a crimson suit with a flower pinned to the lapel. A marine cap shadowed his eyes. His hands were in his pockets, but the rock beneath his boots was melting, dripping into the sea like wax. Fleet Admiral Sakazuki. "Akainu." "Figureland," Akainu said. His voice was deep, gravelly, the sound of tectonic plates grinding together. "You look terrible." "Sakazuki," Naruto replied, leaning against a charred piece of driftwood. He didn't have his coat. He stood in his torn shirt and trousers, looking small against the backdrop of the smoking volcano. "I see they let you off the leash. Did the elders run out of paperwork for you?" "Insolence," Akainu stated. He took a step forward. The ground hissed. "You betrayed your blood. You stole a weapon. You attacked the Holy Land. There is no prison for what you have done. Only ash." "I didn't betray my blood," Naruto said, his eyes narrowing. "I just decided not to drink it anymore. And as for the weapon..." He glanced back at the cave entrance where Shirahoshi was hiding. "She has a name." "It does not matter," Akainu said. He pulled his right hand out of his pocket. It began to drip thick, glowing magma. "Justice does not care about names. It cares about order. You are chaos." "Order built on slavery isn't order," Naruto countered, shifting his stance. "It's just a quiet graveyard. Then join it." Akainu moved. He didn't run. He erupted. Great eruption. Akainu punched the air. A massive fist of magma, the size of a house, detached from his arm and rocketed toward Naruto. The heat turned the sand to glass instantly. Naruto didn't have time to weave signs. He didn't have the chakra for a tailed beast bomb. He had to rely on physics. He inhaled deeply, wind style, vacuum great sphere. He spat a compressed bullet of air. It hit the magma fist dead center. It didn't stop it, but the pressure expanded the magma, spraying it outward like a shotgun blast. Molten rock rained down around Naruto, hissing as it hit the ocean. Naruto vanished in the steam. He reappeared above Akainu, his leg coated in haki and wind, leaf hurricane. He kicked downward. Akainu didn't dodge. He turned his shoulder into magma. Naruto's foot passed through the molten liquid, burning his pant leg, but the haki connected with the solid body underneath. Bam, Akainu grunted, sinking knee-deep into the rock. But he grabbed Naruto's ankle with a magma hand. "Got you." "Burn," Akainu growled. Naruto's eyes flashed. He didn't try to pull away. He spun, twisting his body in the air, wind style, gale palm. He blasted a shockwave of cold wind directly into Akainu's face. The sudden temperature drop, from magma hot to freezing wind, caused Akainu's element to react violently. The magma on his face hardened instantly into obsidian rock, cracking and blinding him for a split second. Naruto ripped his leg free, leaving a chunk of burnt flesh behind, and backflipped away. "You fight like a rat," Akainu spat, shattering the stone mask on his face. His eyes were burning with fury. "Running. Hiding. Tricks." "I fight like a ninja," Naruto corrected, panting. "And you fight like a natural disaster. Just mindless destruction. Absolute justice requires destruction." Akainu roared. He raised both arms. The sky darkened. Meteor volcano. Akainu fired fist after fist into the sky. They didn't come down immediately. They arched high, cooling slightly, then rained down as a barrage of molten meteors. It was an extermination technique. He was going to sink the entire island. Shirahoshi. Naruto screamed, turning toward the cave exploded, not from a meteor. From the inside, Shirahoshi burst out, swimming through the air on a bubble ring she had created. But she wasn't retreating. She was looking at the sea, surrounding the island. Emerging from the smoke, were 10 marine battleships. A Buster Call fleet, led by vice admirals, encircling the island to ensure no escape. They opened fire. Cannonballs whistled through the air, mixing with Akainu's magma rain that it was impossible. Trapped between a volcano and a fleet, Naruto looked up at the falling magma. He looked at the fleet. He was exhausted. One arm was useless. He couldn't stop this. I can't save us, Naruto realized, a cold dread gripping his heart. You don't have to, a voice said. Shirahoshi floated above the beach. She closed her eyes. She didn't scream this time. She sang that it was a low, mournful frequency, a song that vibrated through the water and the air. Oh, the ocean exploded. The Buster Call fleet was lifted out of the water. Massive, serpentine shapes erupted from the deep. Sea kings. Not just 3. Dozens. Some had shells like turtles, others looked like eels, some were simply maws with teeth. A sea king the size of a mountain bit a marine battleship in half. Another swatted 3 ships out of the water with its tail like they were bath toys. The marine cannons fell silent. The vice admirals screamed orders that went unheard over the roar of the monsters. Akainu froze. He looked at the sea, watching his fleet being dismantled in seconds. The ancient weapon, Akainu whispered. His face twisted in genuine disgust. That power, it is too dangerous to exist. He turned his back on Naruto. He aimed his magma fist at Shirahoshi. Die, monster. Naruto's vision turned red, the exhaustion vanished. The pain in his arm vanished. All that remained was a singularity of pure rage. Kurama Link mode, flash. For 1 second, Naruto forced the 9 tails to wake up. He drew every ounce of chakra left in the beast's reserves that he moved faster than light that he intercepted the magma fist that he didn't block it. He punched through it, sage art, magnet release, Rasengan that he slammed a sphere of swirling wind and magnetic sand into Akainu's chest. The seal pattern from the 1 tail, Shikaku, spread across Akainu's magma body. What? Akainu gasped. He couldn't move. The magnetic seal was binding the iron in his magma, freezing him in place. Naruto didn't stop. He channeled wind chakra into his good hand until it sounded like a jet engine. This is for the old man. Naruto screamed, thinking of Cobra. And this is for my friend. He drove his fist into Akainu's stomach, planetary Rasengan. The impact didn't blow Akainu away. It ground him. The central sphere rotated one way, the orbiting spheres the other. It acted like a grinder, shredding Akainu's hockey defense and tearing into his internal organs. Akainu coughed, not blood, but liquid fire and ash. His eyes rolled back. The sheer force cracked his ribs and ruptured his internal magma flow. Boom, Akainu was launched backward. He flew across the beach, crashed through 3 rock formations, and slammed into the side of the volcano, burying him under tons of rubble. Naruto stood there, his arms smoking, the golden glow fading from his body that he fell to his knees. He had nothing left. His vision blurred. He couldn't hear the Sea Kings destroying the fleet anymore. He could only hear his own heart, beating a frantic, dying rhythm. Naruto-sama. Shirahoshi was there. She scooped him up in her massive hands, cradling him like a doll. We have to go, she cried. Did I get him? Naruto mumbled, his head lolling. You hit him very hard, Shirahoshi sobbed. But he is moving. From the pile of rubble, a hand emerged. A magma hand. Akainu pulled himself out. He was missing half his face, regenerating slowly, his suit was gone, and he was bleeding heavily, but he was standing. He was a Terminator. Figureland. Akainu wheezed, stumbling forward. I will burn you. Dive, Naruto whispered to Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi didn't hesitate. She jumped into the ocean, clutching Naruto to her chest. A massive sea king, a zebra-striped eel, opened its mouth and swallowed them whole, diving straight down into the crushing depths where no human, not even an admiral, could follow. On the beach, Akainu limped to the shoreline. He fired a magma fist into the water, but it cooled and hardened harmlessly. They were gone. Akainu fell to his knees, clutching his chest where the seal mark was still faintly glowing. He coughed up blood. He escaped, Akainu growled to the empty, burning island. The dragon escaped. The depths, inside the mouth of the sea. King, it was dark and damp, but safe. An air pocket allowed them to breathe. Naruto lay on the soft tongue of the creature. Shirahoshi was using her own tears to wash the soot from his face. You were amazing, she whispered. You fought the magma man. Naruto opened one eye. It was blue again. I didn't win, he rasped. I just survived. Winning is living, Shirahoshi said firmly. She sounded older. The battle had changed her. She had seen the might of the Marines and realized she could break it. Where are we going? Naruto asked. We can't go to any island. He'll find us. The Sea Kings told me of a place, Shirahoshi said. A place in the calm belt. An island where no compass points. Ruins of an old kingdom. Naruto closed his eyes again. Fine, he muttered. As long as it doesn't have volcanoes. I hate volcanoes. He passed out. Shirahoshi stroked his hair. She looked into the darkness of the deep sea, her eyes glowing with a faint, bioluminescent light. Rest now, Naruto-sama, she whispered. You protected me. Now, I will protect you. Chapter 8 End. Chapter 9, The Voice of the World. The calm belt was a place where the world held its breath. There was no wind here. The ocean was a sheet of polished obsidian, stretching endlessly into a gray horizon where the sea met the sky without a seam. It was a dead zone for sailors, the nesting ground of the Sea Kings, and the only place on the planet where the turmoil of the great pirate era felt like a distant rumor. The water broke with a gentle ripple as the massive zebra-striped Sea King surfaced. It glided toward a solitary island, a jagged spire of white limestone that looked less like land and more like a bone protruding from the earth's flesh. The creature opened its mouth, and two figures spilled out onto the white sand. Naruto hit the ground and didn't move. His breathing was shallow, a wet rattle in his chest. The battle with Akainu had burned through his chakra reserves, and the salt water had stung his unhealed burns for hours. Shirahoshi pulled herself onto the beach, shivering not from cold, but from the silence. It was unnatural. No birds sang. No waves crashed. Just the overwhelming pressure of nothingness. Naruto-sama, she whispered, touching his forehead. It was burning hot. I'm awake, Naruto mumbled, though his eyes remained closed. Just recharging. Solar batteries are low. Shirahoshi looked around. The island was small, dominated by ruins that defied architectural logic. Pillars of white stone spiraled into the sky like DNA strands. Archways stood unsupported by physics. It didn't look like the work of humans or fishmen. It looked like something grown. The Sea Kings call this the Isle of Whispers, Shirahoshi said, her voice echoing too loudly in the stillness. They say it is where the ocean goes to remember. Good place for a nap, Naruto grunted, forcing himself to sit up. He winced, clutching his ribs. The regeneration was working, but slowly. We need shelter. My skin feels like it's too tight. She helped him stand. He leaned heavily against her, his small frame dwarfed by her bulk, yet she felt like he was the one holding her up. They moved inland. The ruins were covered in moss that glowed with a faint, pulsing blue light. As they walked, Naruto felt a strange sensation, a humming in the back of his skull. It wasn't hockey. It was deeper. It felt like the island was vibrating. Do you hear that? Naruto asked. Hear what? The singing. Shirahoshi stopped. She closed her eyes. I feel it. It sounds like sadness. They reached the center of the island. There, standing amidst a circle of broken statues, was a massive block of stone. A poneglyph. But it wasn't the standard blue or red, it was white. Pure, alabaster white. Naruto limped toward it. He placed his hand on the stone. It wasn't cold. It was warm, pulsing like a heartbeat. I can't read it, Naruto murmured. I never learned the script. But I understand it. Kurama, it's not language, Naruto. It's intent. Pure chakra preserved in stone. This feels like the Sage of Six Paths era, but twisted. Shirahoshi, Naruto said. Touch it. She hesitated, then reached out. Her massive hand covered the face of the stone. The moment she made contact, the silence of the calm belt shattered, not with sound. With a scream that didn't come from the island. It came from everywhere at once. The sky above them turned a sickly, bruised purple. The white stone of the ruins turned gray. The air grew heavy, smelling of ink and old blood. Naruto staggered back, clutching his head. What the hell is this? Shirahoshi didn't move. Her hand was glued to the stone. Her eyes, usually wide and blue, rolled back, turning entirely white. Found you. The voice didn't come from Shirahoshi's throat. It was a grinding, multi-layered sound that vibrated the very atoms of the air. It was a voice that tasted like metal. Shirahoshi. Naruto shouted. He tried to pull her hand away, but a shockwave of black lightning blasted him backward. He hit a pillar, coughing blood. Above the island, the sky tore open. A massive, spectral eye appeared in the clouds. It had red irises, concentric rings that rippled outward. The presence wasn't physically there, but its will was projecting across the globe, locking onto the resonance of the ancient weapon. Poseidon, the voice droned, echoing from Shirahoshi's frozen mouth. The key must turn. The flood must come. Shirahoshi began to scream. It was a sound of absolute violation. Her mind was being flayed open, her will overridden by a force eons old. The sea kings surrounding the island began to thrash violently, their eyes turning red, controlled by the corrupted signal. Get out of her head. Naruto roared that he gathered his chakra. He didn't have enough for a physical attack, and he couldn't punch a projection. This was a battle of the mind. Kurama. Throw me in. Kurama, it's risky. That thing, it's a void. If you dive into her mind while she's connected to it, you might never come back. If I don't, she's gone forever. Naruto slammed his hands together. He ignored the pain in his body. He focused entirely on his spiritual energy. Ino, Shika, Cho formation style, mind transfer jutsu, modified, that he didn't weave the signs. He just shoved his chakra directly into Shirahoshi's forehead. Let me in. The world dissolved into white. Naruto landed in water. He was standing on the surface of an endless ocean. This was Shirahoshi's inner world. Usually, it would be bright, full of coral and sunlight. Now, it was dying. Black ink was pouring from the sky, staining the water. The ink hissed like acid. The sky was dominated by the red, ringed eye of Imu, staring down, freezing everything it looked at. In the center of the ocean, Shirahoshi was curled into a ball, floating on the surface. She was tiny, her human size, and she was wrapped in black chains that were tightening, dragging her down into the depths. Shirahoshi. Naruto sprinted across the water. The ink rose up to stop him. It formed into faceless soldiers, shadows armed with spears. Out of my way. Naruto didn't stop. He didn't use ninjutsu. He used pure will. He punched a shadow soldier, and it shattered into light. In the mindscape, belief was power. And Naruto was the most stubborn believer in existence that he reached Shirahoshi. The chains were heavy, cold. Go away. She whimpered, her eyes squeezed shut. It sees me. It sees everything. I am small. I am weak. You are not weak. Naruto grabbed the chains. They burned his hands, searing his soul. He ignored it. Look at me. The king of the world. She mumbled, parroting the voice invading her head. Resistance is sin. Above them, the great eye narrowed. A beam of darkness descended, aiming to erase Naruto's presence from her mind. Naruto looked up. He bared his teeth. Hey! Cyclops! The beam hit him. It felt like being unmade. It was the weight of 800 years of oppression. It was the fear of every slave who had ever bowed to a celestial dragon. It was the crushing certainty that freedom was a lie. Naruto's knees buckled. His spiritual form flickered. Kurama, Naruto. It's too heavy. No. Naruto grunted. He forced one leg up. Then the other. I've carried heavier things than this. He thought of the swing set. He thought of Sasuke's hatred. He thought of the village that despised him, then loved him. He thought of the war. I am Naruto Uzumaki, he shouted at the sky. And I don't care if you're a king or a god. You don't touch my friends. He exploded, not with violence, but with light. A golden sun erupted from his chest. It was the warmth of the 9 tails, the brightness of the sun seal, the fire of his own soul. The light clashed with the darkness. It didn't fight it, it illuminated it. The shadows recoiled. The ink evaporated, the chains holding Shirahoshi turned to dust. Shirahoshi opened her eyes. She saw him. Not the injured boy on the beach, but a warrior made of gold, holding up the sky to keep it from crushing her. Naruto-sama. Stand up, Shirahoshi, Naruto said, his voice echoing like a choir. He reached down and pulled her to her feet. This is your ocean. You decide who swims in it. Shirahoshi looked at the red eye in the sky. She felt the fear, the ancient terror of the predator. But then she felt Naruto's hand, warm and solid. She remembered his words. Power is about having the capacity to hurt, and choosing when to use it. She looked at the ocean beneath her feet. It was hers. Get out, Shirahoshi whispered. The water rippled. Get out, she screamed. The ocean responded. Massive pillars of water shot up into the sky, shaping themselves into the forms of sea kings. They roared at the intruder. The water turned brilliant, blinding pink and blue. The red eye widened in shock. It hadn't expected the weapon to fight back. Shirahoshi and Naruto stood side by side. He lent her his courage, she lent him her scale. Together, they punched the sky. A massive shockwave of combined haki, Conqueror's haki from Naruto, and the ancient authority of Poseidon from Shirahoshi, slammed into the projection. The red eye cracked, with a sound like shattering glass. The presence of Imu was ejected from her mind. Reality, Naruto and Shirahoshi gasped. Collapsing onto the white sand of the Isle of Whispers, the gray sky vanished, returning to the normal blue of the calm belt. The oppressive weight lifted. Naruto rolled onto his back, panting. That was intense. Shirahoshi sat up. She was trembling, but not from fear. She looked at her hands. I felt him, she whispered. He is cold. He sits on a throne of ice. He's scared, Naruto said. Shirahoshi looked at him. Scared? The king of the world. He attacked us mentally because he couldn't reach us physically, Naruto explained, sitting up and wincing. He's terrified, Shirahoshi. He saw you waking up. He saw the history coming back. People who rule by fear are always the most afraid. Naruto looked at the white poneglyph. It was dull now, its energy spent. He knows we're alive, Naruto said. He knows we're together. We can't hide anymore. Not here. Not anywhere. Then what do we do? Shirahoshi asked. She looked different. Her posture was straighter. The crying girl from the tower was gone, burned away by the psychic fire. In her place sat a queen who had stared down a god and won. Naruto stood up. He walked to the edge of the water and looked toward the red line, thousands of miles away, but he could feel it. The scar on the world. We stop running, Naruto said that he turned to her. Shirahoshi, can you call them? All of them? The Sea Kings? Yes. Not just the ones nearby. All of them. From the Calm Belt. From the Grand Line. From the New World. Shirahoshi closed her eyes. She felt the connection now, unblocked by fear. It was a web stretching across the entire planet. Yes, she said. I can. Good. Naruto clenched his fist. His bandages unraveled in the wind that was finally starting to blow. We need an army, Naruto said. And I need a ship. We're going to pick up some friends. And then. He pointed at the horizon. We're going to knock on his front door. Mary Gios? Shirahoshi asked, a thrill of terrifying excitement running through her. No, Naruto grinned, savage and wild. We're going to break the red line. We're going to bring the ocean to them. He looked at her, his blue eyes burning with the promise of dawn. Are you with me, partner? Shirahoshi smiled. It was a beautiful, dangerous smile. To the end of the world, Naruto-sama. Chapter 9 End. Chapter 10, The Dawn of the Dragon. The world did not end with a whimper. It began with a song that it started in the Calm Belt, a frequency so low it was felt rather than heard, vibrating through the tectonic plates and rattling the teacups of kings 1,000 miles away. It was a mournful, ancient sound, but beneath the sorrow lay a command of absolute, terrifying authority. The ocean, which had been still for centuries in this dead zone, began to boil. Naruto stood on the head of the largest sea king, a creature with scales like obsidian armor and a scar running down its eye. He wore no suit today. He was stripped to the waist, his torso wrapped in bandages that were already unraveling in the rising gale. His sword was strapped to his hip, and his eyes were closed, feeling the pulse of the planet. Beside him, Shirahoshi stood tall. She was no longer hiding behind him. She was the vanguard. Her eyes glowed white, her arms outstretched, conducting the symphony of monsters rising from the deep. They are here, she said, her voice echoing with the chorus of the abyss. Naruto opened his eyes. The horizon was gone. In its place was a wall of flesh and scales. Thousands of sea kings, ranging from the size of galleons to the size of islands, had gathered. They churned the water into a frothing maelstrom, and behind them, emerging from the mist like ghosts of the revolution, were ships, the Wind Granma. The Saber of Xebec. The hidden fleet of the revolutionary army. A transponder snail in Naruto's hand clicked. Dragon here, the voice was rough, like gravel in a storm. We heard the call. The wind is at your back, Figureland. I'm not a Figureland today, Naruto replied, watching the red line loom in the distance, a massive red wall dividing the world. Today, I'm just the guy opening the gate. Naruto-sama, Shirahoshi looked down at him. Are you ready? Naruto's body began to glow. Golden chakra flooded his system, mixing with the emerald wind of the dragon fruit. 9 tails manifested, not of fur, but of swirling, razor-sharp wind. Let's go, Naruto said. He pointed his sword at the red line. Take us to the top. Mary Gios. The Pangaea castle. The ground shook. It wasn't a tremor, it was a convulsion. In the room of authority, the 5 elders stopped their discussion. Saint Marcus Mars flew to the window, his eyes widening in a rare display of shock. The ocean. Mars whispered. It is rising. Down at the Red Port, the guards looked up in horror. It wasn't a tsunami. It was worse, the Sea Kings were launching themselves out of the water. They were biting into the sheer red rock of the cliff, using their massive bodies to form a living, writhing staircase. Other sea kings, the ones with flat backs, were swimming up the falling water of the reversed mountain currents, carrying the revolutionary ships on their backs, and leading the charge, flying through the air like a golden meteor, was a single man. Scramble the holy knights! Saint Warcury roared, transforming into a massive Fengshi boar. Activate the seraphim. Do not let them breach the holy land. Sirens blared across the capital of the world. The illusion of peace was shattered instantly. Naruto hit the edge of the red line at Mach speed. A squad of seraphim, clones of the warlords, intercepted him. Hawk slashed with a black blade. Snake fired a laser. Naruto didn't slow down. Wind style, Raisin Shuriken barrage. He didn't throw one. He threw 6. The spinning blades of wind and chakra expanded, creating massive spheres of destruction that engulfed the seraphim. The explosions blew a hole in the perimeter wall of Mary Geos, sending debris raining down on the chaotic streets. Naruto landed on the pristine pavement of the Plaza of the Gods. He stood up, smoke rising from his shoulders. Shirahoshi, he shouted. Boom! A massive sea king breached the cliff edge, slamming its chin onto the plaza. It opened its mouth, and Shirahoshi slid out, riding a wave of water that the creature spewed forth. Behind her, Sabo, Dragon, and the commanders of the revolutionary army leaped from the beast's maw. Charge! Sabo screamed, his pipe wreathed in flame. The plaza descended into madness. The Holy Knights, led by Saint Garling, clashed with the revolutionaries. Fire met steel. Haki cracked the air. Naruto didn't join the melee. He walked forward, his eyes locked on the Pangaea castle. Going somewhere? A shadow fell over him. Saint V. Nusjiro, the warrior god of finance, stood in his path. He was in his hybrid form, a skeletal centaur, gripping a kitetsu blade that dripped with freezing cold from the underworld. Uncle, Naruto greeted him coldly. You look like death. And you look like a disappointment, Nusjiro hissed. He moved faster than sight. Naruto didn't dodge. He caught the blade. He caught the black blade between his palms, clap, stopping it inches from his nose. The shockwave cracked the ground for a mile. I'm done playing by your rules, Naruto growled. His arms shifted. Dragon scales covered his skin. His grip tightened, cracking the Haki coating on the elder's blade. Sage art, frog kumite. Naruto released the blade and punched. He didn't hit Nusjiro. He punched the air in front of him. But the natural energy extended the reach. An invisible force slammed into Nusjiro's skeletal face, shattering his jaw and sending the massive centaur flying backward through 3 buildings. One down, Naruto muttered. Do not get arrogant, boy. The sky went dark. Saint Topman Warcury, the warrior god of justice, dropped from the clouds. He was a colossal boar, his tusks coated in Haki so dense it looked like black holes. He aimed to crush Naruto flat. Naruto looked up. He couldn't tank that. Not even with Kurama. Shirahoshi. Now. From the edge of the cliff, Shirahoshi screamed. Neptune. A sea king, the largest one, known as the Master of the Deep, whipped its massive tail. It didn't hit the ground, it hit the air, creating a pressurized shockwave of water that acted like a cannon. The blast of water slammed into Warcury mid-air, knocking the billion-ton boar off course. He crashed into the residence of St. Charlos, obliterating it. Naruto sprinted toward the castle. The path was clear. He reached the steps of the Pangaea castle. The massive doors, sealed for centuries against commoners, loomed before him. He didn't knock. He formed a Rasengan, infused it with the power of the Kazuryu, turning it into a drilling vortex. Wind style, drilling gale. He drove the attack into the doors. Wood splintered. Metal screamed. The doors exploded inward. Naruto walked into the empty throne room. It wasn't empty. The other 3 elders, Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter, were waiting. And behind them, sitting on the throne, was the silhouette. Emu. So, Saturn said, tapping his cane. The rat returns to the trap. I'm not a rat, Naruto said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. And this isn't a trap. It's a demolition site. You think you can defeat us? Mars screeched, spreading his wings. We are immortal. We are the pillars of this world. Pillars crumble, Naruto said that he closed his eyes. He reached deep inside, past the chakra, past the haki, to the very core of his being, Kurama, Naruto. If you use that technique, the recoil will tear your body apart. We might not regenerate from this. I know, Naruto thought back. But if I don't, the sun never rises. He opened his eyes. They were no longer blue. They were gold, with a cross-slit pupil that he clapped his hands together. Sage art, Azura mode. It wasn't a transformation. It was an evolution. 3 heads. 6 arms. An avatar of pure golden chakra manifested around him, but it was fused with the wind dragon. The avatar grew, smashing through the ceiling of the castle, rising hundreds of feet into the air. It held 6 massive raisin shurikens, each one swirling with a different element: fire, water, lightning, wind, earth, and pure haki. The elders looked up, their immortality suddenly feeling very fragile. What is that? Jupiter gasped. Naruto, suspended in the center of the golden avatar, looked down at the throne. This is the wind that pierces the heavens, Naruto said that he brought all 6 arms down. 6 paths, ultra, big ball raisin shuriken, planetary devastation. The attack descended, the elders tried to block. They transformed, unleashing waves of darkness and poison. But it was like trying to stop a falling star with a paper shield. The collision vaporized the Pangaea castle. The explosion was silent at first, the energy was so dense it devoured the sound. Then, the shockwave hit, the top of the red line cracked, the symbol of the celestial dragons, the hoof, carved into the courtyard, was obliterated. The very bedrock of the continent groaned and split. The castle, the throne, the history of 800 years, it all fell into the crater of swirling gold and white light. Naruto held the pressure. His skin cracked. Blood poured from his eyes. His bones splintered under the strain of channeling so much power. Break, he screamed, with a final, sickening crack. The empty throne shattered, the floor beneath Imu collapsed. The shadowy figure fell into the abyss, consumed by the vortex of wind. Naruto's avatar flickered and vanished. He fell from the sky, a broken doll amidst the falling debris. That he didn't hit the ground, that he hit something soft. Something warm. Shirahoshi caught him. She had slithered through the ruin, ignoring the fires, ignoring the battles still raging around the perimeter. She caught him in her hands, shielding him with her body as the last of the castle's stones rained down. Naruto-sama, she cried, her tears falling on his burnt face. Naruto. Silence fell over Mary Geos. The castle was gone. The elders were buried. The symbol of godhood was a smoking crater. The holy knights stopped fighting. The Marines, who had arrived as reinforcements, lowered their weapons. They looked at the destruction. They looked at the sky. The clouds, which had been perpetually gathered over the Holy Land to hide it from below, began to part. For the first time in centuries, the sun hit the top of the red line without a filter. Naruto coughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. He opened one eye. Did I get the spider? He wheezed. Shirahoshi laughed, a sound halfway between a sob and a cheer. You got the spider. You got the castle. You got everything. Naruto tried to smile, but his face hurt too much. Good. Redecorating was necessary. Sabo ran up, covered in soot, supporting a limping dragon. They looked at the devastation, then at Naruto. The world just turned upside down, Dragon said softly. The balance is gone. No, Naruto whispered, closing his eyes again. The weights are gone. Now, it balances itself. 1 month later, the world was chaos. But it was the chaos of spring, not winter. With the fall of the elders and the destruction of the central authority, revolutions ignited in every sea. The Marines fractured, some following Akainu's absolute justice, others following Fujitori's moral justice. The great powers scrambled for control, but on a quiet island in the calm belt, the Isle of Whispers, there was peace. Naruto sat on the edge of the white cliff, his legs dangling over the water. His right arm was heavily scarred, the skin looking like cracked porcelain, but he could move it. The white poneglyph behind him was silent, the water rippled. Shirahoshi surfaced. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wore a crown of coral, not of royalty, but of leadership. The Sea King swam lazily around the island, no longer monsters of the deep, but guardians. The newspaper came, Shirahoshi said, placing a massive seagull-delivered paper on the cliff beside him. Headline: The Dawn Era begins. World government fragments. The traitor saint vanishes. They think you died, Shirahoshi said. Let them think it. Naruto picked up a pebble and threw it into the water. Gods are better when they're myths. It keeps people on their toes. And what about you? She asked, resting her chin on the cliff edge so she was eye level with him. What will you do? Naruto looked at her. He looked at the vast, open ocean. He felt the wind, his wind, blowing freely, no longer blocked by the massive wall of the red line. I'm retired, Naruto grinned, the old fox-like mischief returning to his eyes. I think I'll try fishing. I hear the fish in the all blue are delicious. Shirahoshi giggled. You are terrible at fishing. You just yell at the fish until they jump in the boat. Hey, it works. He stood up and dusted off his pants. He walked over to her and placed his hand on her cheek. She leaned into the touch. We pierced the heavens, Shirahoshi, Naruto said softly. Yes, she agreed. And now? Now, Naruto looked at the sunrise painting the ocean in gold and orange. We live in the sun. He climbed onto her shoulder, settling into his favorite spot. Let's go, partner. I want to see what's over the next horizon. Shirahoshi smiled, a smile that shone brighter than the dawn. She turned, her massive tail propelling them forward, away from the ruins, away from the politics, into the endless blue. The gale had passed. The storm was over, but the wind would blow forever. Chapter 10 End.